Good to go, Alice.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Just signing in. All right. Welcome, everyone. This is the Environmental Protection Committee for Manhattan Community Board 1. Big agenda tonight. My name is Alice Blank. I'm joined by Lucian Reynolds, our district manager, and Wendy Chapman, our co-chair. So it's a big night to talk about construction staging and of the various resiliency projects that are ongoing throughout the Lower Manhattan Peninsula. And I guess, and correct me if I'm not going to address this correctly, Jordan maybe can be helpful, but I'm hopeful that with all the presentations, once they're all done, we can then open it up to a lot of questions about the phasing that have come up and how, you know, the logic of it and why it has to be the way it is. So should we do the whole presentation and then let Gwen and Jordan and the EDC group answer questions? Does that make sense? I'm not sure who I'm addressing this to, but
Yes.
maybe Jordan.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, welcome. All right, so I assume you're the kickoff and monitor. Welcome, Jordan. It's great to see you. Thanks a lot.
Well, thanks for having us. Diana is going to pull up our slides, but good to see everyone. For folks, tonight's going to be a little bit different than I think where you may have seen me before. We host quarterly updates for the Lower Manhattan Coastal Resiliency portfolio. While we will be addressing all of the projects, we're going to be spending a little bit more time on the topics that have already been addressed and across some of the other projects focusing on construction staging. We know this is a keen interest for the board, and we've received a number of questions, and the materials reflect answers to them. So with that, I think I will launch into it. Next slide. So as mentioned here, bear with us while we briefly kind of pull back and do a kind of big picture to give folks a sense of the projects, our goals, a little discussion on interagency coordination, as I know that was something that was raised by the board, and then deep dives on construction staging impacts. Just for continuity's sake, there will be a couple slides from the BPCA team, and then focus on the battery, so the adjacent project, and then highlight the ongoing engagement opportunities across all of the work. Next slide. So I know many of you have seen this slide before, but we think it's very important, and it connects to a question that we received from the board. Here gives you a sense of kind of all the projects that fit in the Lower Manhattan Coastal Resiliency portfolio, not including East Side Coastal Resilience, which is just north. It's a big milestone earlier today. The operation of the second gate as part of that system. The mayor held a press conference. Very large structure. I believe it's roughly 80 feet and 45 tons. Really represents some of the progress and really the kind of scale of the undertaking to protect Lower Manhattan from these risks. But moving south, folks are familiar. This is just outside of the CB1 jurisdiction, but critical to the overall strategy is the Brooklyn Bridge to Montgomery Coastal Resilience Project, or BMCR. It's a $522 million project, roughly $172 million coming from the federal government, and the remainder from the city. As we move south, the next project, the Seaport Coastal Resilience, this is the newest of the efforts. It was announced last fall, came out of the FIDI Seaport Master Plan effort as an opportunity to buy down risk and really assess one of the kind of lower geographies where we can move forward quickly. That's a $170 million project. We are hoping to hear back later this summer on a grant we submitted to FEMA, the BRIC grant, and are also exploring other the HMGP grant opportunity that many of you have been helpful in supporting through letters of support. But that is kind of in the earliest stage. We'll be talking about that one a little bit later. The next project, I think folks are very familiar at a very different stage as well, the Financial District and Seaport Climate Resilience Master Plan. That is a conceptual planning effort to look at protection from the Brooklyn Bridge down to the Battery, contemplates extending the shoreline between 90 and 200 feet with 2 levels of protection, a sea level rise level of protection at the front and surge at the back. As opposed to these other projects that are funded. That is a unfunded project at the moment. Well, we estimated the cost there to be between $5 and $7 billion, understandably given its complexity and unique nature. The next project, and we'll be spending a lot of time, so I won't get into the detail here, but the Battery Coastal Resilience, $165 million, all city capital. Sea level rise focused project, and then finish it off with our partners at the Battery Park City Authority. 2 main projects, their South project that was discussed earlier tonight, and their future Northwest effort as well. And so with that, let's go to the next slide.
Can I just ask one quick question? And it's about the financing and where it stops. So the Battery Park City Authority project stops where the green line stops, correct? It cuts into the Battery, and then the Battery Coastal Resilience Plan picks up that little, I'm going to say, call it a triangle. It's not really a triangle piece, but that's the Battery protection on the east side of the Battery. Is that correct?
That's roughly correct. The connection point is at Pier A. Those were the 2 projects. And yeah, as mentioned before, and you highlighted, the Battery Park City work extends beyond their jurisdiction. So exactly right.
Thank you so much. Sorry, I interrupted.
No problem. Next slide. So I think this is also important to emphasize here as we kind of step back and look at this portfolio. This effort relies heavily on our partnership with the New York Panel on Climate Change. This is folks are familiar with the IPCC. This is a downscaled effort that releases reports every 4 years that looks at the risks specific to this region. And this is something that is kind of underpins all of our work and is really kind of fundamental to making the decisions and something that is kind of the most essential value of our work. It's also important to us to communicate the multi-hazard risk. I think that is something that is sometimes gets confusing. These are a ton of different projects in proximity. Some of them address sea level rise, some sea level rise and surge, and so I think that is kind of always incumbent on us to be clear and communicate that, and also communicate the urgency. With each passing storm season, we are just about a week and a half away from the beginning of the New York. Beginning of the hurricane season here. So I think that's something that drives all of this work and some of the urgency that you hear from us. It's also about creating an equitable and inclusive public engagement process. It's been challenging, obviously, going through COVID and kind of adapting and coming up with new methods. I think in some ways has certainly drawn more engagement, but I think it's the overall strategy depends on an inclusive process. I know that many of you I've seen on walking tours, kind of other efforts, and so I think that's kind of a meet people where there are strategy is really what drives most of this work. In terms of the design and what we strive to do in the resiliency infrastructure itself, it's about protecting key historic assets, designing ecologically sensitive when we can, and thinking through sustainability. That's something that certainly we've talked about with this committee before about the Battery project and others. And then talking through adaptability and realizing that we are at a kind of specific time slice, and we know we use the best science available to us today, will clearly keep on evolving, and that is something that we make sure to embed in our design. Another key component here is maximizing federal and state investment. This is a unique moment in the passage of the federal infrastructure bill. And so there were certain opportunities available to us that weren't available prior, and you will see kind of some of our strategy mapping to that. There's also upcoming Environmental Bond Act. So where we can, we try to be opportunistic and open ourselves up to available funding. And then, the whole point of tonight, and certainly moving forward, is ensuring clear communication about these construction impacts, because at the end of the day, these are, as I mentioned before, the kind of very large, critical infrastructure projects, and we just want to make sure that we are clear about this effort. Next slide. So there was a question from the board specifically about the structure of coordination across the city. I think this reflects maybe the tip of the iceberg in terms of I think all these folks are certainly here and beyond. I think we don't have DOT listed here and DEP, but we work on all of these projects with those agencies as well. But just to the question, Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice, the office I work, oversees the city's resilience portfolio, including Lmcr, and make sure that the kind of policy decisions are consistent with citywide goals. EDC, they lead, I believe, 3 of the 4 projects in the Lmcr portfolio, and that includes the FIDI Seaport master planning effort, BMCR, and the battery. Parks Department, the owner of the battery, among many other things, but certainly in this context, there's a lot of focus on making sure that that's the best project it can be. Battery Park City Authority, they are deeply involved in kind of all the other aspects, and talking about the kind of policy coordination, but their role is about leading resiliency planning for the projects within the city, within Battery Park City, including the Northwest project and the South project, and DDC, who is leading implementation of the BMCR project. So it's a lot here, but I just want to make sure folks know kind of who everyone is and what their roles are. Next slide. So this, I would say, is kind of other core question that came back from the community board. There was a version of this that we shared in May. We think this is much better. It should give you a sense of starting from kind of the projects that are beginning construction the soonest, out towards the master plan, which is moving forward. Design is moving forward, but in terms of construction start date, construction complete, we certainly aren't there yet. So Brooklyn Bridge, Montgomery Coastal Resilience, and Battery Park City South, both beginning construction in this upcoming fall. Then followed by the Battery Coastal Resilience in spring 2023. The next one is the Northwest Battery Park City Authority project in summer of 23, followed by that Seaport Coastal Resilience. The one I mentioned is the newest of the bunch, where we expect construction in fall of 2025. And so if this is, once again, a lot of words and a little confusing, we have come up with another version for you all to digest this. We're going to the next slide. You can see here, I know that my brain works a little bit better this way, so I think this should be helpful. The 2 projects that we mentioned beginning construction first, the South Battery Park City South Coastal Resilience Project and BMCR. Just important note as we flip through these as well, and we're going to be going into detail on phasing. These lines don't represent the entire, these areas won't be in construction the whole time, but these are the project extents. So if we go to the next slide, you can see a couple additional projects slot in there. The Battery Coastal Resilience project in spring of 23, followed by that Northwest project in summer of 23. We go to the next slide. You can see that a couple projects have finished by 2025. Some of those, the tip of Manhattan You have kind of the end stage of BMCR, and you have in different areas the Northwest project picking up, and the Seaport Coastal Resilience project picking up. And this is, obviously there's work for the financial district and Seaport Climate Resilience Master Plan that is picking up after that as well. So you can see the kind of scale of the effort here across this area. I believe that's the last slide, and flip over to Claudia from the authority to talk through, briefly connect back to the presentation just as a through line. Claudia?
Thanks, Jordan. So at the last Lmcr quarterly update, the Battery Park City Authority provided the board with what we called at the time the phase 1 staging for the South Battery Park City Resiliency Project. That consisted of the Wagner Park and Museum of Jewish Heritage sections of the project. So tonight I'm joined by Laura Gray, our construction manager from Lero, who is going to walk through that construction staging, as well as our Pier A and Battery Bikeway construction staging plan, which we previously did not have to present to the board in May, but now have to present. And then we'll also talk a bit about construction hours, and then we will hand it off to our partners at EDC. Laura, do you want to go ahead? Oh, Laura, you're on mute. Sorry, Laura, you're on mute. I can hear you.
Sorry. Good evening, everyone. Again, I'm Laura Gray. I'm from the Lero Group. We were brought on by Battery Park City to oversee the construction on the South Resiliency Project. And we were at this subcommittee back in March showing, this plan, which shows the Wagner Park reconstruction. And the museum of just starting from the north, working south, the work zone begins at approximately First Place for this phase and works all the way down towards Pier A. The accesses to the work zones are shown in orange, the gates to the work zone. The Museum of Jewish Heritage will remain open during the work. And we were working with them to, allow them to remain in operation and minimize impacts to the extent, that we can and get the work done. Our entrance on First Place, we talked about previously, will not be the main entrance. That will be for the work that's happening on First Place. Next slide, please. This is the graphic showing the second phase of the work, which is the battery and the Pier A work. This is new. You have not seen this before. Our work zone for this phase of the project is in orange and extends from Pier A all the way down to a little bit before State Street. And we will be shifting the alignment of the bikeway and the walkway slightly north. And that shift in that alignment is depicted here with the kind of the dashed blue line and the solid blue line. That will be the pedestrian access during construction. We will maintain the bathrooms will be open. The public bathrooms that are in the battery will be open. The public access to the park will be, though, primarily towards State Street because our construction fence will run along Battery Place. And our staging area for the work is shown in blue on this graphic, and that will house our trailers and some of our materials to perform the work. We are working with both the DOT on their resiliency project for the underpass, which is below us, as well as with Parks and EDC on the Lower Manhattan resiliency project. And that work is adjacent to us. And I'll turn it over to Kathleen to talk about that. But before I do that, I just want to mention that we do have our construction community liaison on the line here. His name is Rick Fogarty, and he works for Melissa Johnson Associates. And I'll put the contact information in the chat for any questions that you may have about construction or this graphic after you had a chance to look at it. And we can get back to you. And our work hours, as Claudia mentioned, will be pretty standard union work hours, 7 to 3:30, Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. Saturdays, with some off-shift work for limited durations for, utility work and other items that we can't do during straight time. And I'll turn it over to Kathleen at this point. Thank you.
Kathleen, are you with us from EDC?
Oh, sorry again, mute. Yes. Thank you, Claudia and Laura and Jordan. Good evening. I'm Kathleen Chan. I'm with the EDC Capital Program Group, and our team has been spearheading the Lmcr battery project, and we've been working hand in hand with Parks, our consultant, Stantec, who you have met before at previous CB1 board meetings. Tonight, we also have Hunter Roberts Construction Group. They're our construction manager. And we've been working, as I mentioned, hand in hand with BPCA, New York City Department of Transportation, MPS, and of course, the Battery Conservancy. Hunter Roberts Group, our construction manager, has been working with the team, providing pre-construction services for about the past year. They have been involved with comparable projects, including Little Island, Pier 17, Pier 40, Pier C, and the Harlem River Greenway. As part of our extensive coordination efforts with Parks and BPCA and DOT and National Park Service and the Conservancy, we have focused really on site safety, phasing the work in the most efficient and holistic manner, knowing that our neighbor PBCA is to our left, and we do have some work by DOT within the battery. And we're also trying to minimize impact to the public's access to the battery, and you'll see that when Hunter Roberts talks in detail about the plans. There were numerous back and forth sessions between ourselves, Park, the Conservancy, and our entire team. We explored land and waterside construction routes into the battery. We do understand and acknowledge that trade-offs are necessary, but the team feels that we're presenting tonight the plan that makes the most sense. We considered a lot of variables and a lot of the real issues that the community and the group and the tourists who come and visit the battery. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Marty Liebrock. He's from Hunter Roberts, and he's going to walk us through the specifics of the battery staging and logistics plans. Marty, if you want to, or who's controlling the slides, we'll move it over to the battery logistics and staging.
Thank you, Kathleen. Good evening, everyone. I'm Marty Liebrock, Senior Project Manager with Hunter Roberts. Excited to present our staging and logistics plans on what is a very important project. We're excited to be a part of it. As Kathleen said, we've been looking at this for a little while now, several months, and we've reviewed quite a few options on staging and logistics. And, we've really been looking at this from kind of a bird's eye view, right? There's our scope of work, and then there's everything else that's going on with adjacent projects and the ongoing use of the park, and really work to try to minimize any impacts as much as possible, minimize the impacts to the park. So what you see here, this is the first stage of our construction, and this starts later this summer, and goes into early next year. Our work is highlighted here in blue on the east end of the wharf. In purple on the left, that is the South Battery Park City Resiliency project. So that will be ongoing at the same time as this stage of construction. And what this stage really is, this is a temporary or an interim repair program that is going to be done, some pile repairs that are going to be performed on the structure as a means to facilitate the ongoing use of the structure by statute cruises. So minimal kind of impacts during this phase. Much of the work is going to be done from the water side. You'll see crane barges out on the water. So there will be a visual impact. However, water side work means that landside disruption is minimized. What you see here in the blue arrow, this is a truck route that comes in off of South Street. So the idea was to stay out of the center of the park as much as possible. This will be used primarily, periodically for any landside deliveries that are required. But as I said, most of this stage of the work is going to happen really from the water side. Towards the tail end of this phase, the security screening facility that's used by Statue Cruises will be relocated to the east end of the wharf from its current location near Castle Clinton. And I'm going to turn it over to Mike Bradley for just a minute from Parks to talk about that facility relocation.
Thank you, Marty. Good evening, everyone. I'm Mike Bradley from Parks Planning Division. I'm part of the Parks team on the Battery Resiliency Project, and I've been working with the National Park Service in particular on how to get our work done and still provide for continuous access to the Statue of Liberty from the Battery during that whole period. And what Marty described is essentially, and you'll see in upcoming slides, what we are doing is repairing two of the slips which are unusable today so that the Park Service's security screening, which is in a tent, people know it as a tent, can be relocated to an area near the View Restaurant, which is shown in brown on the screen. And then passengers would go through screening there during the period when construction is happening on the other side, and you'll see that graphically, and leave from those two repaired slips. As soon as that temporary tent facility is constructed near the restaurant, the existing one will be removed. And then we'll flip back the other direction. You'll see that. Marty, maybe, or Diana, maybe we could go to the next slide. Marty, do you want to discuss this? And I can.
Sure, yeah, I'll present. This is the stage 2 staging and logistics for the wharf reconstruction, and this is when the work really starts in earnest. We start on the western end of the wharf that's highlighted here in pink. And again, we took a holistic view of kind of the overall park and the adjacent projects. That Battery Park City work is ongoing during this phase on the left-hand side. And then there are also some DOT work, which is highlighted in green on this plan as well, kind of throughout the park. So there's a lot going on. And what we were focused on in looking at this stage was, okay, how do we get to the site, and where's our staging and lay down area? Where can we locate that place that really minimizes disruption and impact to the park? We wanted to try to keep as much of the park open, as many of the park features open as possible. And in this scenario, we're putting the vehicular access and the staging areas in that lawn oval, which is an area that is already kind of impacted by the South Battery Resiliency Project. And so the idea was to consolidate the impact to that one area and leave as much of the rest of the park open and undisturbed as possible. While there will be a requirement for vehicular access at this point in time, we're working with the design team to look at utilizing as much precast concrete as possible. And what that does is it reduces the impact and reduces the number of concrete deliveries that are required to the site. We're also looking at utilizing barge deliveries for fill, import, and export, again, so we can tackle as much of the work as possible from the water side. And while that vehicular route will be there, our goal is to just minimize the use of it to the greatest extent possible. This phase is starting, again, after those interim repairs are done. We're starting this phase, and March of next year, and it'll last 12 months into March of 2024. Again, the primary objectives here were to minimize impact and to keep park goers safe. We will also have, at this point in the project, we'll have a community liaison on board. They're not on board yet, but they will be later this year. And at that point, we can introduce the community liaison to the community board with their phone number and email address via email. And you can go to the next slide. Mike, did you want to pick up where you left off about the?
Yeah, I was just gonna, if you could go back actually. So it may not be clear, but the brown shapes in the water are ferries to the statue, carrying people who have already been processed through the security screening in the newly erected tent. The existing tent has been disassembled and will be stored on Liberty Island during construction. All that work, by the way, is being done by the National Park Service at their expense. Essentially, they are working with us to allow our construction to proceed at the same time as they continue to have operations for ferry passengers to the statue. And then if you switch now to the next one, you'll see we're back to basically the current arrangement.
And at this point, this is stage 3 of the construction. There's a 3-month lag between stage 2 and stage 3 when the facility is brought back to its current location. So we pick up in June of 24 through the end of 24 to finish up the project with stage 3. Again, same strategies with maximizing waterside construction to the greatest extent possible. You can see that the Battery Park City Resiliency project is done at this point. Any vehicular access that we need to the site will be coming around South Street, so that disruption to the park is kind of further minimized during this stage. The oval will largely be restored to its current condition at this point, with the exception of the one small area that you see here, which will be a home to our field offices and some temporary storage. There is no need for frequent vehicular access between that staging area and our site. That'll mostly just be project personnel walking back and forth between the site and the field office. And again, at this stage, much of the existing facilities in the park remain open: the playscape, the sea glass carousel, restrooms, gardens of remembrance. So we think ultimately what we came up with here, after looking at several iterations and several options, hopefully will be received as a positive plan in a way that we can tackle this work with minimal impact. So with that, I will turn it back over. I think Jordan is next to talk about opportunities for engagement.
Yep. And so briefly, this was another question that came in from the board on essentially where we are in the different projects and what that means for engagement. Obviously, there are others that are further along. Highlighting here BMCR, the Battery, and Battery Park City, where design is essentially complete or nearing completion. Does that mean engagement stops? Certainly not. Talked a little bit about with Lucian, some of these projects kind of going to the quality of life committee and defer to the board on exactly what that looks like moving forward. But certainly the communication will remain through the process. For other efforts, highlighting here the Northwest project, Seaport Coastal Resilience, and FIDI Seaport Master Plan. Earlier in design, there are certainly kind of opportunities to shape those projects. And that's certainly something that we've seen the board shape those other efforts. So that's something that we expect. Highlighting here the Battery Park City Northwest open house that's been going on. I believe you can send comments between now and the 31st. Seaport Coastal Resilience, that is essentially the beginning of the very beginning of design, not even a conceptual design. Sorry, Michael Bradley with the cat lurking behind to refrain to keep my train of thought, but I'm doing my best. And obviously that FIDI Seaport master plan, where we are also in the kind of conceptual stage and have a long path ahead of us, but have hit some great milestones at the end of last year and expect to ramp up that work with this board into the fall. And so with that, I know there are kind of a few other things that we moved to the appendix that we can reference, but I imagine maybe this is time for that previous item, the modeling item that Gwen was going to speak to. Does that sound like a next step, Alice?
Yes, that's a good idea. Thanks.
Alice, but Jordan, the modeling and the steps need to involve both EDC, the mayor's office, and BPCA. So please don't jump away.
We're all here. We're all here all night.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thanks, Gwen.
Hi, how are you? Claudia, do you have that slide? I think it was in the other deck, or does someone have the slide?
I've been a bit remiss in not introducing everyone, so if you just fill in who you are.
Sure. This is, I'm Gwen Dawson. I'm the Vice President of Real Property for Battery Park City Authority. Just searching for the slide. I know this is kind of in the middle of, there we go. There we go. I know that there is.
Again, I just want to make sure you can all see this, right? Sorry about that. I was on mute.
Yes.
Yeah. I know that there's been some questions that have been flying about or floating about over the past week or two regarding the legitimacy of the modeling that has been employed for the South project. Alice had asked that we speak to those questions. And with respect to Battery Park City Authority's involvement in the establishment of the projections and the criteria involved, we certainly are involved in having our consultant team prepare coastal modeling and have fashioned our design on that coastal modeling. However, the basis for that coastal modeling has been called into question, and specifically there's been a charge that the project is based on outdated FEMA models, the reality is that it's not based on outdated models at all. The flood protection models that have been used to develop the project are the existing FEMA standards, which are considered the best available data. I think there's some confusion about that because there was the effective FEMA flood insurance map dates back to 2007. There was a preliminary flood insurance rate map that was issued in 2015, and that was the model that was or the map that was not approved and was challenged by the city, and I'll get to that in just a moment. But the existing map is the 2007 map, and we are compliant with Local Law 96 of 2013, which requires that the New York City Building Code, and therefore all the coastal flood protection projects built in compliance with it, use the more restrictive of either FEMA's 2007 effective flood maps or the preliminary flood map that was issued in 2015. And all of the city projects, all of Battery Park City Authority projects are designed to meet those legal standards. One of the results of the city's challenge of the 2015 preliminary flood insurance rate map was to delay the increase in flood insurance costs for New York City homeowners, not to lower the long-term planning criteria for flood mitigation projects. Local Law 96 codified this distinction. It protected homeowners from insurance cost escalations while ensuring that the new construction that we undertake with the resiliency projects is built to last. The standards that we are meeting are also informed, as Jordan indicated earlier, by the New York City Panel on Climate Change. The New York City Panel on Climate Change comprises carefully selected experts in disciplines related to climate change and its impacts. The 2015 sea level rise projections that were adopted by the Panel on Climate Change, which were reaffirmed in 2019, consider the best available data and modeling approaches from all sources and is geared towards achieving the best possible adaptation outcomes for New York City. So the bottom line from Battery Park City Authority's perspective is that there is a legal requirement that we utilize the same criteria that the city is utilizing for the other resiliency projects. And certainly we have heard for a long time the desire that we be closely aligned with and coordinated with the city, and by adopting these modeling bases and assumptions, we are doing just that.
Okay, thanks, Gwen. All right, I think we've heard from every one of the groups, so I'm sure there's questions. So let's start with the committee members. Maybe they're not. Okay. Richard Corman.
Yeah, thanks, Alice, and thanks everybody presenting today. I wanted to stay with the comments that you were just making, Gwen, about the standards that are being used. Can you talk specifically about the sea level rise projection that is being used? And can you tell us if those projections are the same across all the projects that we've heard about today, or do they differ in any one of those projects? And if so, why?
I'm sorry to jump in, but it might be helpful, Jordan, if you put up, I can't remember whose slide that was, which actually in certain ways answers that question, where you have each project and what it's addressing. You have one that's like Seaport, Coastal Resilience, Battery. Can you find that slide? Because that might be helpful for everyone to be seeing it at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Diana, we actually added, and this was something we showed in May, into the appendix, the DFE slides. Probably the easiest way to talk through this.
Well, no, I'm not talking about that slide. Yeah.
Lucian, can you pass presenter back to me so I can pull up the slide?
It's the slide that shows that the Seaport Coastal Resilience and raising those Esplanade is different than the Brooklyn Bridge Montgomery, which is, focusing on a 100-year storm. You identify each one's purpose.
If I could directly answer the question about the sea level rise, though, and Jordan, please jump in if I misstate anything. I don't think there's any project that assumes a different sea level rise number. I think they all assume the same sea level rise number. Is that correct, Jordan?
That's accurate, and it's using 90th percentile projections for sea level rise. So that's roughly for the 2050s, I believe 2.5 feet, and for 2100, I want to say just over 6 feet. But yeah, consistent across all of these projects.
You know, I think Richard's got a really key question here that's not getting answered that we really need to drill down on, because I think it's what is on everybody's mind. So this is not the slide I was referring to, in fact, but there was one that came up.
I think if the third slide or so that shows all the projects together.
Helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, some of them say they're
Yeah, there you go.
addressing
That's
sea
the
level
one.
rise. Some of them say they're addressing sea level rise and storm surge. That was confusing.
Yeah, and actually, you know, I think the other slides may be a little bit easier to talk through the, you know, why certain are sea level rise and surge. But, you know, to the fundamental question, these are all using the same projections from NPC. This is NPCC. This is the 90th percentile. If you look at the BMCR project and the Battery Park City projects, 2050s, 100-year storm plus sea level rise. If you look at the two, the Battery Coastal Resilience and the Seaport Coastal Resilience, those are sea level rise only focused projects because they are done in conjunction with future surge efforts. So for the Seaport, as we talked about before, the master plan effort will be done following that and address the surge risk. And then in the battery, as you can see there, you have the kind of project along the edge, and then you have those two projects filling in the back that are the surge protection. That's the back half of BPCA's project, and that tieback, you see that the yellow line of the master planning effort. So that is the reason why you know, I think we have had long conversations with the community board about you know, the battery project and its efforts and goals. You know, protecting against surge in the battery location would lead to, you know, roughly 25, you know, sorry, 18 to 20 feet of elevation at the edge would completely block the views of Statue of Liberty, fundamentally disrupt the park. So, you know, those are the sort of conversations that we've been having with this board for a number of years.
Can I just ask, this is really helpful, is the idea that these are somewhat interim in the mind of the city? Like, that's always been a little unclear to me personally, having followed it for a lot of these years. For the Battery Coastal Resilience, what could you give an example of? Now you're just going to be raising this esplanade 3 to 5 feet. The future holds what in that section of pink, the Battery Coastal Resilience, in the mind of the city?
So I wouldn't characterize it as interim whatsoever. You know, I think it is a component piece of a larger strategy. You know, it is functionally able to protect against sea level rise toward the year 2100. And as a corollary effect, will be helpful in smaller coastal storms as well. You know, maybe not a Sandy event or kind of a massive coastal surge, but you know, something that we expect to see, I believe, in the kind of 10, 15, 20-year return period. It'd be helpful. EDC parks, can we confirm this number?
I'm going to keep asking the question that why is it then that just north, the piece of land that simply is under a different jurisdictional regulation, but it's the same piece of land, arguably going around the corner there, the Battery Park City project is sort of looking at a 2050, 100-year storm, but right next door, the battery is only going to be looking against sea level rise. Is there? I guess that kind of discrepancy, if you will, has always been somewhat confusing to, I think, many of us as to why such a different approach. And then what would the battery receive? Is the idea that the battery would be sacrificed ultimately in one of these storms going forward, but yet the Battery Park City would not?
Certainly wouldn't call it a discrepancy. I think, and this is a conversation that we've had and had at the community board a number of times, is there are just, fundamentally different constraints. These are all, unique kind of urban environments, some with kind of certain available space, others having subway tunnels running underneath, kind of other connections to the drainage network. So I think it is, while I can understand why you asked the question. I think all these projects, whether it's ESCR, whether it's BMCR, do have different looks and feels, but at the end of the day, they are protecting against surge and sea level rise. And so, once again, the battery project is not an interim project. It is being done in conjunction with Battery Park City's work on the eastern edge, and the coordinated work with the master plan on the western edge. So it is kind of a coordinated strategy there.
So I'm just going to throw in one question, Richard. Forgive me, it's all on the same topic. So why wouldn't Battery Park City have their coastal resilience be the same as the battery, and simply an approach that is less, I don't know, impactful, if you will? Why wouldn't they have done? I mean, why would those two be aligned? What's going on the battery versus?
They're not. They're complementary. They are not. They're intended to address different objectives. The objective, as Jordan has mentioned, for the battery coastal resiliency project is to address the sea level rise induced flooding, or what may be called tidal or rainy day flooding or nuisance flooding that will happen as a result of sea level rise. But it does not, and it allows the esplanade there to be utilized on a more consistent basis, whereas the portion of the South Battery Park City project that goes along the north side of the battery provides that 2050s 100-year storm risk reduction that is not addressed by the Battery Coastal Resiliency Project. So at the end of the day, once all of these projects are in place, Lower Manhattan will have a continuous line of risk reduction defense against the 2050s 100-year storm at least. Not every location will have the kind of measures that are being done by the Battery Coastal Resiliency Project. Not every location within Lower Manhattan will have that nuisance flood defense component, but several of them will.
Yeah, well, I think we're going around in circles. I think it's enough said that there are two different objectives that make very little sense to me. Why they're different. They still, I don't understand why they have to be different when they join each other. And I think that's a question that, needs to be better answered. And, I know you've tried, and I know we've talked about it a lot, Jordan, but I think that's at the crux of a lot of people's concerns as to the need for this. This keeps coming up, and now recently again. And so I think that when you have the Hudson River Park being untouched by any resiliency measures, and you have the battery only against sea level rise, but yet you have Battery Park City with the 100-year storm going up 14 feet, these levels of distinction, while presumably the objective is to make the coastline resilient, are hard, at least for some of us, to fully grasp. But anyway, I will leave it to other people. I'm sorry you've taken that time. I think that's an essential question.
I agree. We should move on. I would just encourage folks to take a look when we post this appendix slides that clearly show the kind of different approaches across the project. But I think at the end of the day, they are protecting similar standards. They are based on wave action. There are kind of smaller differences between the projects, but they are protecting against both sea level rise and surge well into the future. And I can't get this across enough, but no two projects, if we were to do this across 520 miles of coastline, will look the same, just the same way that no two parks will ever look the same. There are kind of underground constraints. There's kind of different risk profiles. I mentioned, the sort of risks that you see at the tip of the battery, the wave action there, very severe. You don't see that kind of all places across the city. So I think that just because kind of on the surface, the projects don't look exactly the same, doesn't mean the same sort of thinking that kind of underpins all of this isn't consistent across all of these projects.
Okay, thanks very much. Richard, I'm sorry I interrupted you. Go ahead if you had another part to your question.
Yeah, that's actually related to what you were talking about. So we have here on this slide where Hudson River Park is the U.S. Army Corps HAT study. Not sure what that means in terms of protection for the coast and the Hudson River Park and anything to the east of that. So maybe you could explain that, but also explain what effect, if any, could or should the HAT study have on anything else that is being planned and we've seen here for LMCR?
It's a great question. I know that the Army Corps came in front of the board earlier this year. My understanding is that there's a large milestone for them called the tentatively scheduled plan that they're looking towards the fall to release. They have for folks that aren't familiar, a wide variety of options, some kind of very large gates, others more kind of on land measures. They have discussed a few alternatives, I believe 3A, 3B, and 4, where the cost benefit is the strongest. And so we believe they are moving in that direction. Even within those three that I mentioned, kind of wildly different impacts. One would be kind of a gate at Verrazano, where in theory, less, but doesn't mean Lower Manhattan is in the clear because there are kind of sea level rise impacts that these large gates don't address. And others where they rely on a kind of more something like you see here. And so we know that this is a study that's been going on for quite a while. This tentatively scheduled plan stage is just one in kind of not nearly at the end of their study phase. It then has to be appropriations to support the work. So it is a kind of a very long-term process. We've seen it play out in other parts of the city over decades. So we've heard consistently from this community board to advance, in light of this uncertainty. And so what we've been doing is working very closely with them. I think there will be a kind of more to think through in the fall with this community board, and we look forward to kind of thinking through what they choose and how that might impact this work. But by no means do we want to delay the vital work, and that's why you've been seeing both the authority and the city pour our resources into making folks safer.
Okay.
Thanks, Jordan.
You're set, Richard. Wendy Chapman.
Hi, everyone. Thanks again for this update. One of my constant repeating request is more explanation in plainer words, in more forms, in more creative ways to reach the average person. I went to the Swedish festival that just happened in the Battery Park with the summer solstice, and I did an informal interview of probably 30 people, some that lived in the neighborhood, some that were visiting. And I think only one person knew anything about any of the city's efforts for battery parks. And there were thousands of people at that event. There will be hundreds of people lined up to get the Statue of Liberty ferry to go out. We have queues for, tour buses. I can see people gathering in spots all over Lower Manhattan. And I just don't understand, why don't we have simple sandwich boards with plain English or cute posters just saying, here's where we are today and here's what's coming. There's so many ways to plainly explain to people, which is what I was doing. I just went up to people to say, hey, I live in the neighborhood. Have you heard about this? And, I don't know if it's a lemonade stand like I suggested, or big banners on the sides of every place where there's a public restroom or a queue or something like that. There really needs to be more of a public service announcement, because this sign that you put up, or the signs that Battery Park put up, there's a lot of dense information that is not eye-catching to someone walking by. And I'm not sure how you explain it, but there's anger every time the bulldozers show up. And I'm just asking you to do everything you can to get the word out. And in Battery Park and with Gwen and Nick, as we work together, Nick knows this on the census when I was working on that work. The buildings do not communicate to their residents very well. It's very, very difficult. So we need to work harder on that. But communication is not, I don't think it's even close to being where it should be for any of these projects. And I think one of the things is, I've been reading articles about the first projects that, Jordan, you probably know this really well, neighbors that are seeing their, the first wave of all the trees that came down and the park that's being destroyed on the east side. There's a lot of lessons learned there, and we should be trying to figure out how to better communicate. And quite frankly, also doing more to say a sad, but, thank you for your service to all these parks before they're reconstructed. I still don't hear anything about the emotional side of saying goodbye to these parks that served us so well properly, so we can welcome in the new. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Wendy. Jeff Galloway.
Hi, thanks. I just want to see if I can translate in my own mind what Jordan and Gwen were saying about the difference between sea level rise protection and coastal and 100-year storm protection. As I understand it, the higher design flood elevations that are characteristic of the Battery Park City projects, and presumably the FIDI project, when and if it's ever designed, are intended to protect against both. That if there's a 100-year storm in 2050 on top of sea level rise, those areas would be protected. Let me just pause a moment and get confirmation that I've understood it so far. Is that correct?
That's correct, Jeff.
Okay.
Yep.
The Battery Coastal Resilience project, basically the WRF project, is not intended to protect any place from the 100-year storm. It's intended to protect against sea level rise, i.e. tidal flooding, that would occur, periodically, simply due to sea level rise by 2050. Is that correct?
That is, it's actually 2100, but yes.
Yeah. And so decision was made, a combination of design, practicality, and risk, that if you really wanted to protect the park from the 100-year storm, you'd have to build that barrier that would block the views and would kind of defeat the purpose of the park. However, there are areas beyond the park that need to be protected from the 100-year storm. And that's where the southern part of the Battery Park City project comes in, and presumably the FIDI project, when and if it is built. Also recognizing that State Street on the east side of the park is a much higher elevation to begin with. Am I correct?
I think you said this better than I did, but yes, absolutely.
So in the 100-year storm, when the projects are all finished, the battery will simply flood. The park will simply flood during the storm. The water will go back out at the end of the storm, and presumably over time, the vegetation may change, so it's more resilient to salt water. But but fundamentally, the decision was made to allow the park to flood in a storm, rather than create a wall that kind of defeats the purpose of the park in the first place. Okay, thank you.
Oh, is that confirmed as accurate? So that was
That's
what you
accurate.
said earlier. So the park is being sacrificed as I, thought. Okay. That's helpful. Thanks for that. From our committee, I think not. So I'm going to go to Tammy.
Thanks so much, and I apologize for how dark my video is. I'm actually in a hotel room, so on vacation. Yay. I have a question for Jordan in terms of we celebrated in terms of resiliency, the rebuilding of the park in the Battery, and the entire design was done to move water as it came from flooding and from surge and storm. And the entire park was designed around the movement of water to help protect Lower Manhattan. I don't see any, it's a small park, understood, for the kids, but I don't see any reference to any of it, how that actually links to the greater plan. And it did bring up a thought in my mind as to why that same supposition wasn't necessarily used in Battery Park City as a way to potentially even lower the total height and the total redevelopment of the park in terms of moving the water to put it back where it came from surge and from storm, versus lifting everything to the height that we're doing. That's 1 out of 2 questions.
So just to clarify, you're talking about the playground in the back of the Battery, right? That's what you were discussing?
Yep.
I mean, 4 design questions related to that. I don't know, Michael, Sarah. I think that is a piece of the puzzle, and some would say a very small piece. I know less about that effort, so I don't want to speak out of turn. But before I do that, let me give it to Grace, Sarah, or Michael.
Yeah, I would just say that the Playscape Playground, has resiliency features built into it. It's got permeable pavement, it's got ability to, store small amounts of water during storms, but, it's really kind of has resiliency features, I would say, built into it. That's the best way to characterize it. So it still will flood during a 100-year type of storm. So
I think that's kind of where I was going with the conversations and points that Alice and Richard brought up, is that it is designed specifically to flood, and that is a design choice that's being made at the tip of the Battery and along for Hudson River Park Trust, but nowhere else. So that does, obviously have questions. And then secondarily, we are not in the same situation as we were with Superstorm Sandy. There have been an extraordinary number of measures taken since that time by agencies like the MTA and the Port Authority to safeguard the transit systems for many of those. So the supposition of building up to this level, there's not been any kind of connection that I've seen that shows me, based on the protection that has already been done, both for the underpass, the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, all the subway stops, all the air vents and things like that for a storm. Why is that not negligibly, if even considered, in terms of the heights and the rates? I did remember Gwen saying that there was a negligible difference in terms of the heights once the wharf project was done. But I think for the public, if it was a foot, that's actually a pretty big difference if you're a 4-foot person versus a 5-foot person looking at a 9-foot wall versus a shorter one. So those are 2 questions that are linked. And then the last one, I'll just stomp out there. I don't know how many times I need to say this, since we have temporary measures that can be in place, I'm really uncertain why all the projects have to overlap so that we are under construction with a lack of public space for the public realm to such an intense level. Why can it not be staged so that the oval lawn is closed, but Wagner is open? That you're not taking out such massive parts of the Battery and Wagner, and then you have the Brooklyn Bridge Esplanade. And basically you have construction all over the entire CB1, preventing the use really of public space and public realm in the largest growing residential neighborhood and huge business and tourism.
So I'll take the second piece of that, if that's okay, and then hand off to EDC and Parks.
I'd like to weigh in on that as well.
Perfect. So, I think you raise a great question. We too frequently hear actually people say that nothing has happened since Hurricane Sandy, and we're going to the 10-year anniversary, and I imagine there will be some kind of stories with that premise. You all know, you have experienced that a lot has happened. Certainly, MTA has done a valiant job of protecting their assets, their tunnels, their station entrances. Con Edison, a ton of work. All of those efforts are kind of individual assets. And while that was the kind of first thing, and where the kind of money flowed first, and some of the, in some ways, easier projects, they are reliant, for the functioning of Lower Manhattan. These coastal protection projects need to supplement. You can think of maybe the subway station entrance itself, water is not getting in, but how you get to the subway will be impacted. The walk there, the individual buildings. Once again, ton of work. But if you aren't thinking about kind of everything around it, then they obviously lose utility. I think the question you asked about impacts to modeling, that's something that we have incorporated into our models. By negligible, I'm sure Gwen didn't mean a foot. I think she probably meant inches or less. I think it is in some ways it's not intuitive. Even all the water that was in the underpass, seems like a lot of water, but it is not a lot of water when you're thinking through kind of the water from the eastern seaboard, coming on land. And so I think that's it's a great question, but I think it's just worth noting that these different approaches need to happen in conjunction. And so with that, I will hand off to Gwen on the staging and Parks and EDC after that.
Yeah, I'll want to touch a little bit on what Jordan was just saying, and the point that there have been a lot of improvements made since Sandy that make things different. It's true. There are differences that have been undertaken to protect some individual buildings to a certain point. And also I would point out that there were two areas that served as giant depositories for our repositories for the water that came in with Sandy, one being the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, which now will not serve that function in the event of future storms, as is the same case with the World Trade Center. A lot of the water that came in was kind of wound up in the hole that was at the time the construction site there, that would not be available to try to lessen some of the impact of flooding. But going back to the point of the differences between the Battery and Wagner Park and the playscape, I think it's great that it has resiliency, but it did not change the modeling or the design flood elevation for the South project. And there's a lot more room in the Battery to do certain things that relate to water diversion than there is in Wagner Park. Wagner Park is very shallow, and there is the built environment of Battery Park City is right behind it. And so I think that it's important that we all keep in mind that the South Battery Park City Resiliency Project is not simply to protect Wagner Park, although we certainly have tried to design it in such a way as to make it remain available and accessible for use on a continuous basis. But it is a very significant element and component of the protection of Battery Park City and the rest of Lower Manhattan. And there, we don't have the luxury of a lot of space to simply put that barrier system someplace else further inland. And so we have done the best that we could with our design team. I think they've done a really remarkable job of creating that barrier system to protect not only the park and significant components of the park, but also to provide that extra element of risk reduction for Battery Park City and Lower Manhattan at that 2050 level.
Okay, thank you. Can I just, okay.
No one answered about the staging.
Sorry? Oh.
No one answered about the ability to stage them differently. Because if you look at Jordan's overlap from 2023 through 2024, it's not pretty.
So, Mike Bradley from Parks Planning. Our project cannot wait. I've said this in previous meetings. The condition of the wharf structure, which is the pier that wraps around the edge of the battery, is poor, and there are 4 slips for ferry service, and only 1 is usable. And we hope that it will continue to be usable for the rest of the year until we have repaired the other 2 so that the service can be shifted. But we could have a situation where we have to close the wharf entirely to the public and to ferry service in the near future. So, you know, I understand the concerns. We all do. We've been looking at ways to minimize the overall space needed and the impact on the space that remains open. You know, we think we've done a decent job trying to do that, but the battery project has to move forward.
Okay, Tammy, are you good?
I mean, everyone just says the same thing, Alice. I understand that one is an emergent nature for health and safety, but there is no real answer as to the others as to why they all have to be overlapped. And that is something that everyone just says it just has to be. I still don't get it.
I mean, I think it's a really, really fair and good question. And I know, Gwen, we spoke about it at the North Battery public hearing or review. You know, I think it is, first of all, it's still not clear. And I have one question that's just related, which is, was there ever an alternative review that looked simply at Pier A and the sort of Pier A piece of this, and which is really the cute area where the water poured in Sandy, and saw that as the first piece of the phasing along the north part of the battery, rather than moving it directly into Wagner Park? Like, this is part of Tammy's phasing. Why couldn't we start with the most acute pinch points that were actually truly compromised during the storm, rather than in an area that, as we all know, was relatively untouched? Is there some reason, and the battery and the wharf being in really poor condition is a good and understandable reason to begin there. So why don't we just sort of do the work that concerns the battery, the wharf, the northern edge of Pier A, and move from there, and also allowing the community perhaps more time to digest this new pavilion, which is certainly not a critical component of the resiliency of this. So I just was curious as to why, if we could reconsider the order in which some of this is done. And I understand these are two different places with two different jurisdictions, but is that something we could consider?
The battery coastal resiliency project is not being done in lieu of a project that would provide the 2050 100-year storm risk reduction. It is being done in conjunction with, and the concept of just doing a project at Pier A would not be the same thing, because what I'm hearing being suggested is that we do that in lieu of right now doing a project that addresses both sea level rise and the 2050 100-year storm event. And I think that it bears repeating that that we have in our work with the city and Battery Park City Authority have had a very strong shared sense of urgency. And I will dare say that sense of urgency has been widely shared throughout the community. And when we started the projects in Battery Park City, it was in large part in response to the potential that we would come last, that the city was starting on the east side, as it has, and which makes sense, and be working its way around, and then who knew how long we would have to wait until it got around to Battery Park City. And I think that has driven the idea. And if you looked at the schedule that Jordan talked to earlier, we're looking at a scenario in Battery Park City, and I understand. I'm not minimizing the fact that there are impacts, and there's some pain involved with not being able to access these public spaces, but we're looking at a scenario that within Battery Park City, we're looking at having these projects done by the end of 2026, done. And if we look at trying to sequence them, and I understand the appeal, part of the appeal to that, but if we look at trying to sequence them in linear fashion, it will be a lot longer than that before these projects are done. And all the while, this area of Lower Manhattan remains vulnerable, remains at risk.
Yeah, I mean, we hear that, and I hear you, and I didn't mean to say in lieu of, Gwen. I was saying, yeah, you had it right the second time, which is the sort of phasing where the most acute point at Pier A would work within the battery's work. So the authorities work on Pier A, and the wall and the battery and the battery's wharf were sort of one part of this. And then later, when that's done and that park comes back to life a little bit, you then move into actually having to dismantle, take out all the trees and all of the demolition work that'll be done, and of course construction thereafter in Wagner Park. That I just, and the cost benefit analysis and what, really how long will it take and what kind of additional money it would cost. But it seems like a way to perhaps address this problem of the phasing being, kind of not perfect.
I'm sorry. I don't understand how that works. It is not something that we can't simply take these pieces and move them around. I mean, these are projects, and we're looking at the objective of FEMA certification for these projects, which is of significant benefit to all the people who are living behind these barrier systems. So I guess I'm kind of missing exactly what it is that you
just
think
I
is
guess
a better
approach. I don't know. I would just go over it one more time. So just for example, specifically, if you were to do the part of the project you show us on Pier A first, rather than, I don't know where you're beginning, but is there some way where you could leave the northern part of Wagner open, or this idea that the entire park has to close along with the battery at the same time? Is there some way to stage the work, not change the work necessarily, but stage the work so that that would allow for more park to be usable during the course of the 2 years or 3 years if it takes another year?
The project is defined in a way in the EIS. Again, has been driven by the desire and the shared sense of urgency to get it completed as quickly as possible. And so the manner in which it has been formulated for construction and the design has fostered that, is to allow there to be overlap in the construction activity. If we were to try to change that at this point, it becomes a different project, and it has to be reevaluated as a different project, because if we were looking at doing work at Pier A and the battery, and then waiting until that work was done before we started work on Wagner Park, then instead of a 2-year project, it becomes a 4-year project. And that then must be assessed as a 4-year construction project. It then has a knock-on effect for the Northwest project. We have made it very clear that we don't have any intention of starting any work on Rockefeller Park that would restrict access to that park, while we have Wagner Park in construction. If we're delaying that, then we're delaying the initiation, the commencement of the Northwest project. So I understand the appeal of looking at it and trying to figure out a different way of putting it together, but we don't have the ability to simply take a piece of the project and just do that one piece and without changing the entire project.
Furthermore, Alice, I think we have been talking this whole time about this kind of overall LMCR strategy. So, impacts to one project, whether it's impacts to the Northwest project, impacts to the battery. And I, do want to take apart the kind of fallacy that seems to be out there of, if you just pick one point, Pier A, these projects, and we've been talking about this with the community board for a number of years, are compartments. They need to tie back. They need to connect to the floodplain, or water will go around them. So, we all know that Pier A is a low point, but it does need to connect back to the floodplain. And frequently we try to find areas where the floodplain is a little bit shallower. I think the BMCR project is a great example. Montgomery Street was selected because the floodplain is a little bit shallower there, and thus we can do a tieback that is a little bit less intrusive. So I just think that the notion that there's this kind of community scale, but yet hyper-specific to just Pier A, you need to connect back to the floodplain, or else water goes around it. And we obviously don't want that. So I think that's a critical point.
We're aware of that. What we were trying to talk about here is phasing, and the phasing of this, we still have not really heard about specifically is what's closing, what's being demolished, when, and I assume that'll be shortly to follow. But what was a curiosity was, was there a way to phase this where you did not have to bring both parks down at the same time? Anyway, it seems to be addressed here, so I will not belabor it, but that was really the point. Paul Goldstein, our Parks Committee Chair.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to, Jordan, you had mentioned earlier that there are now opportunities to shape the design of the FIDI Seaport and Seaport Coastal Resiliency portions of this resiliency work. Surely the Parks Committee is probably interested in offering some suggestions on open space to relieve that area that has a dearth of open space and not that many opportunities. So if we could identify some here, So I guess my question on that is, if the committee and the board takes this up, say in the fall, is that good timing to be part of the planning process? Because we're not really meeting for the rest of the summer.
Absolutely. So, I think that the timing does work out very well. For folks that aren't familiar, that I mentioned earlier tonight, that the FIDI Seaport Master Plan, it's a report that was released at the end of last year. We are resuming work now, and we'll be advancing it from, what we're calling conceptual, maybe 10% or so, into more schematic design over the next couple of years, hand in hand with this committee. And so we are going to be relaunching the Climate Coalition for Lower Manhattan, which is something that has been around the last couple of years, and will certainly be back in front of this committee moving forward. The Seaport, I think that the scale of kind of when we're talking about green space and opportunities, when we're going 90 to 200 feet under the water, are tremendous, and so I see what you're getting at, and it's certainly something that we want to do hand in hand with this committee. The Seaport Coastal Resiliency Project, I believe, will be probably early next year, where we'll bring back engagement with this committee. As I mentioned before, we are waiting with bated breath on a large federal grant. I think that will determine what is possible with the project. And so I think that the timing lines up for us to be back to kind of restart that, or essentially start that process with this community board early next year.
And on that Seaport Coastal Resilience, I know that a group that was formed originally on the 250 Water Street issue, called the Seaport Coalition, consists of a lot of people who live in the historic district. So I think effort should be made to work with them or to make them more aware of what is being planned for their community, and giving them obviously some opportunities to suggest what their issues, concerns, knowledge of the neighborhood might be that would be helpful to you.
Absolutely.
And just one follow-up on those two. Are you the contact person if, say, the Parks Committee wanted to have a separate session on either or?
Sure, reach out to me. You also might know Diana. So I think that reach out to either of us, and we'll certainly get that moving.
Good to know. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Alice.
Thanks, Paul and Jordan. I think last hand up here from the committee board crowd is Justine.
Thanks, Alice. Thank you all for the presentation. I kind of want to go back to two different things. I got 2 points of questions. Jordan and Gwen, going back to what Jeff was talking about. So the Battery Coastal Resilience Project is the triangle, the pink triangle at the bottom that connects into the wall, basically, that's going to go along the north side of the Battery Park. Once that's built, and whatever the raising of the ground in Battery Park, and then the yellow little dotted line, that's the financial district and Seaport Resilience Master Plan. Once those are built, even though they're not being built to the same height in order to protect the 100-year storm, that still will protect the buildings on the southeast side of Community Board 1, and the people, the buildings, the people, the property, whatever you want to say.
So you're asking after the completion of the
Yes.
BPCA project,
When everything's done. So BPCA is going to
Absolutely.
protect BPCA. I get that, right? They've made it clear that they're building to high ground in the north, to high ground in the south, and then there'll be like a island of protection. And that will be an island of protection for the 100-year storm from 2050. Okay, got that. But now you're talking about the Battery Coastal Resilience and the FIDI Seaport Resilience Master Plan on the very tip, that I kind of call it a pink triangle at the bottom that then has that yellow dotted line. What is that going to do if there's a storm that's the 100-year storm? Will those buildings be protected? Yes or no?
Yes, after the construction of that master planning effort, yes,
So when
100%.
green, pink, yellow, blue, and purple are done, everything inside of Lower Manhattan Community Board 1 will be protected from the 100-year storm
Yes, and beyond.
and beyond.
And
That's
so, I think it's that is the important, once again, these projects don't all look the same. Some have kind of the sea level rise and surge, BMCR as an example, built in together. Some have, one at the front and the other at the back. The FIDI Seaport master plan, you can look at it, has, once again, built in together, and these all look different. But when, when we step back, you're exactly right. They are protecting all of Lower Manhattan.
Okay, and so the fact that one is being built to a 100-year or two are being built to the 100-year storm, and 2 or 3 are being built not to that, have no impact on the protection provided at the end when it's all done. I know obviously in the middle, if it's half done, it's not going to protect, but when it's all done.
Correct. That's a good point. Yes. Once they are all complete. Yeah.
Okay, that was question 1. Question 2, Gwen, going back to your explanation about the 2013, 2007, 2015 FEMA maps. So what is I'm confused because there is something that says that there's a building code for 2015. Yeah, go to your slide again. Building code for 2015 as opposed to building code for 2007. Is that even a thing?
There is an approved flood insurance rate map for 2007. There's not a different one for 2013. It goes from 2007, and then there was a proposed flood insurance rate map for 2015. And that is the one that was appealed.
Correct.
However, in the interim, local law 96 requires that for planning purposes, for development, that we utilize the more restrictive of the two, that being the 2015 proposed flood insurance rate plan, flood insurance rate map until there is an approved one. Now, correct me if I've gotten any of that wrong, Jordan.
No. Oh, yeah.
That's accurate. Yes.
So, okay, so flood maps, flood insurance rates are going to be based on 2007 effective FIRM's coastal household saving money fine. And then the city building codes will reflect the 2015 preliminary.
That's right.
Flood insurance maps. Okay. And that's what your slide is saying?
Yes.
So, hey, Justine.
Yeah.
Wendy, I think one of the things that we heard is that the impact on homeowners and, condo owners and businesses and everything else, if the actual flood map triggered and the insurance rates went into effect, everyone's lives in the area would jump dramatically.
Is that the 2015 one you mean, or the 2007?
The
2007.
flood maps, they're not good, right? So what has happened is that decision has been delayed to increase people's, insurance. And yet we know when Hurricane Sandy hits how rough that is.
Yeah.
But is, even if you don't want to charge homeowners and other, entities more money right now for what they really should be insured for, the reality that we have to acknowledge that that's the truth and build for what the reality is. Even if we're not going to automatically tell people that live in a flood zone, you need to pay really what the actuaries and the flood people are put together to say, hey, listen, this is what it really should cost you. We haven't faced up to it.
So I got to jump in here, gals. One summary point on this, because we've got Bob Schneck and we also have quite a few other things on the agenda that it is getting late. So if you can wrap up your questions.
You were going to ask something, Alice, or you weren't? You're just telling us to hurry up.
Well, I hate to say this was
No, but it's okay.
I was just suggesting that you complete your dialogue and then move on to the question.
That's fine. No, because my question really is that, so based on what Wendy's saying and Gwen's saying, I'm trying to understand it because I know I'm asked this and I want to be able to impart the correct information when I'm saying my answer. Bottom line is this appeal and the FEMA maps and the de Blasio administration's appeal of the FEMA map was more based on insurance cost and not based on actual flood risk. Is that a true statement?
If that's a true statement.
Okay, thank you. Well, then I guess that, and you have built out to the higher risk because that's what you're trying to protect for in the long term, correct? Is that that's what the, not just you, not that just the Battery Park City Authority, but the other 100-year storm from 2050. So the two edges of that map, they're both building to the 2015 flood map, FEMA map. Is that a correct statement?
I'll just step in here for just one statement. You know, I think, you know, the best model that we have and the one that is used anytime there's a new building and either time there's a kind of substantial reconstruction are these maps. So I think this is the best available science for the city, as I mentioned.
The 2015 map. I mean, I'm not trying to be funny. I'm just trying to understand it.
Sorry, no, the earlier, the
2007 map.
2007.
Got it.
So there is work ongoing with FEMA. There will be new maps at some point, similar to our conversation with the Army Corps. I'm not betting it will be quickly. My understanding is by 2026. We'll see if that happens. But the most accurate that we have that we can stand behind today and is the kind of fundamental for building and on every single other coastal protection project are these 2007 ones. So I think for consistency's sake, there's no question what we have to use, and for flood insurance purposes, what we need to use.
And that's what all of these proposals are based on. Is that correct?
Yes.
Gwen?
Yes.
Thank you.
All
Thanks,
right.
Alice.
Yeah, sure. Good question. Okay, Bob, I think you're our last question.
Okay, I just wanted to say how much I appreciate the work that's gone into all this planning. And for me, going to Battery Park City Authority on River Terrace and talking to those people about what they've done and their plans, I just learned an awful lot. And a major impression that I always come away with is how seriously people that think about this kind of thing every day, how much more they know than people who are laypersons, and how much of their lives they really put into getting this stuff right. And I really respect them because everything I asked of them was really, they were ready with the answers and they really had thought through. And these community meetings always have the disadvantage of we don't have enough time to speak and we're always trying to compress things. But what was disappointing was how few people from the public have enough interest to go to these kinds of meetings, to go to community board meetings, to go to town halls, even vote. It's just such a disappointment to watch how the public behaves in the face of these really remarkable projects. And the final point I wanted to make was that more than half a decade ago, I was struggling with trying to get people to recognize the urgency of possible storms. With all of this, we're working against unknowns. We'd have no idea how big the storms are going to be in absolute terms, when they're going to come, but we'd be very, very embarrassed if they came after we asked things to stop, and then they came. We're so lucky to have this happening now. We should do our best to throw almost our prayers behind it to get it done as quickly as possible, and to try and educate the public to really be involved with this stuff, know a lot more about it, and care a lot more about it. And so that is what I want to say. And I really want to express my thanks to everyone who showed up in this project. And really, I think on a national scale, no other city in the whole United States is doing what we're doing. We're way ahead of them, and we really should stay that way and appreciate it. So that's what I wanted to say.
Bob, that couldn't be a better coded as part of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you,
That was
Bob.
well stated. And so let me ask the committee. First of all, I just want to quickly open it up. I see, oh, yep, one question from the public. Carrie Parker Davidson, welcome. Can you let her in, Lucian, right?
Now, so thank you, everybody. Bob, I'm a member of the public, and I think this is the third time I've seen Jordan's presentation with the various updates. And when you said nobody's attending, I felt obligated to just raise my hand and show you that some of us are here, we are listening, and we do share the information back with interested community members. My question is more for the Parks Department, and maybe when Paul gets Jordan to the Parks Committee meetings, we can get more in depth on this. But I think if you're going to wholesale shut down green space in Lower Manhattan, maybe there's some work to be done both on communicating the phasing of closed park space and communications of park by park forecasted closure and reopening dates. And then I'd love to see some sort of mitigation strategy for open space. Can we substitute streetscape for parkscape on a temporary basis where, people are already talking about, reducing vehicular traffic in preference for pedestrian mobility? Can we convert some space to take the place of some of the lost park space? So I don't know if you guys have thought about that, or if the Parks Department has thought about ways to open additional space while all this construction is going on.
It's a great question, Carrie. Michael, do you want to take that one, or someone from Parks? Yeah.
Well, I mean, Battery Park City Parks are managed by the authority. The Battery Resiliency Project has a relatively small impact on the open space in the Battery, and it's fairly brief. But we're certainly open to ideas for any kind of temporary open space, whether it's improvements within the Battery or elsewhere.
Thank you. I think it would be really helpful to take a look at existing parks inventory and see where we can free up space that's maybe staged with other construction or has other things being used, and open up as much of that space as possible. So, there was an article this weekend about the Sarah D. Roosevelt space. We're going to have to, Columbus Park needs to be made, I just think there are some things to do to give people additional green space while Lower Manhattan is under construction.
It's a really critical point, Carrie. I mean, you couldn't, yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
So it looks like we've heard from folks that wanted to be heard from. So does the committee want to write a resolution in summarizing the different ideas that we've discussed about staging the parks projects? Is that something, that sort of we're up for? Is that a yes? I guess if you're raising your hand, Jeff, is that a yes, or is that you had something to say?
Well, it's I have something to say. It's really a no. I'm not sure that we've come to a consensus. I know there's certainly been on any minor details. I mean, any details that would be specific in a resolution. Clearly, it's important for us to keep an eye on all of these issues, and I think we've identified a whole host of areas of concern. Just speaking for myself, I'm kind of a pull the Band-Aid off kind of guy. I'd much rather have 2 years of intense construction than 4 years of less intense. I mean, I've lived in Battery Park City since 1982, so I've been through a lot of construction, and for a good portion of that time, there was some element after another that was under construction. And I would definitely say that from my personal perspective, I'd rather have 2 years of intense than 4 years of less intense. That said, I think staging is important, but I think the responses that we've heard are essentially fall along those lines of, do you want 2 years of of hell or 4 years of hell, or more like 4 years of hell or 6 years of hell. And meanwhile, we've got a risk going on. I think we need to keep an eye on it. I think we need to be making sure that these schedules are adhered to. But I'm not sure that I would favor a resolution. That's just my personal.
Thank you. No, that's exactly what we're looking for. Our committee members' thoughts on that, Wendy?
I think I have to echo Jeff. You know, my complaint is that we should have been doing something already and we're behind schedule. And we're lucky that we haven't had another Hurricane Sandy, and it's coming. And the problem I have, quite frankly, is the communication about what's coming and preparing our community about it. But, you know, I might have decided to do other parts of the city first, but you know, the Battery Park City project is the authority has the means and efforts that they can move first. You know, as everyone knows, North Tribeca, I think probably should have happened before, but it's not. So we just have to take it in the order that it comes, even though, you know, it goes back to don't throw out the, you know, the good for the perfect. And the piece I have a problem with is just communicating and having signs up to say, you know, your park is going to close. Make sure everybody knows that and say, unfortunately, you're going to have to go to Governor's Island, or you're going to have to go up to Central Park, or, you know, out to Brooklyn or something like that. So we need to communicate to people what their alternatives are. And I'm with Jeff, just the sooner the better.
Can we get any commitment from Battery Park City or the Parks Department or Jordan about whether or not this could be done, so there's some sort of more coherent and visible communication of what's going on, where one goes and such? Is that something that's being worked on? Or I know that certainly the Battery Park City Authority has been trying to do that. Are there other plans afoot that we should be aware of?
Hi, Alice. This is Kathleen from EDC.
Oh, I was going to say, Kathleen, I was about to jump in too. So if you want to start, I can finish.
Absolutely. Claudia, myself, and team members from both our groups, and including our communications experts that we have hired, we've been having meetings and talking to each other. And I think what's most important is to have a cohesive message, given that the projects are different. There's different ways of communicating to the public. What we don't want is to have the public see a sign and then walk down a little ways and see another sign. So I think what is important is for us to communicate within ourselves and then to the public. And so Claudia and her group and our group have had conversations and continue to have conversations. We've talked about websites. We've talked about frequently asked questions. We talked about really, really clear communication, and also to talk about why we're doing what we're doing. So those conversations are being had. Jordan is certainly part of it. Diana is also. And we're going to continue those. And when we're ready to show something to the board, I think it's important that when we show it, it is clear and it's not muddled even amongst ourselves.
There's already plenty of websites out there. That is not the issue. If the public wanted to be informed and dive deep like we do, they could. What I really want is simple, something simple.
Hear you loud and clear, Wendy. And cannot agree with you more, especially with those who are not familiar with the park, those who come in to use the ferry service. We hear you loud and clear, and these are things we are trying to talk amongst ourselves. You see Jordan nodding his head, Diana as well. This is clearly something that we're aware of, and we've heard you talk about it at the last CB meeting, and we hear it again today. So yes, we are working on communications.
Well, and that's good to know. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm not to interrupt. I'm sorry. And just to build on Kathleen's point too, to make sure that obviously there's a lot of other users of this area. So making sure we're clear about detour signs, where the placement of those are. I think we, getting information about where they see the traffic coming in to make sure that people are aware. I think we've talked a lot about sort of how we make sure that information is coming out in a way that's fulsome and helpful for people, that it's not sort of just muddled, to your point, being very clear about what's going on, especially with look aheads, and people can understand what's happening in a 2-week window, a 3-week window, things like that. So we've been having a lot of conversations about that. Also, obviously with parks and EDC and MOECJ. So like we've all been trying to sort of wrap our hands around it because it's a big task to do in a way that actually makes sense and is clear for everybody.
Can you
And-
clarify exactly how it will be done, Claudia? Because time is of the essence. If I'm understanding correctly, this project will break ground in after Labor Day, we're told, in terms of Battery Park City work, and then in October in the Battery, if I've read it correctly on your presentations. So how are you going to get this information out? And also, where is the follow-up here with the community and the board in terms of sort of the environmental impacts? I mean, I think one of the things that's missing from this presentation is what, just sort of specifics. When are the trees coming down? When is the building being demolished, assuming it still will be? When is the park, what kinds of measures are going to be in place for the environmental concerns that have certainly been circulated? When does that going to be shared?
Sure. So in response to your first question, so we are well aware that time is of the essence in terms of getting this information out. And so we've had, I think, 3 or 4 conversations just in the past week about this, and we're going to continue to coordinate really closely to make sure that we get sort of, for lack of a better way to put it, all of our ducks in a row in terms of what this looks like, make sure it's clear, make sure it's clearly also conveying the immediate impacts. First of all, just interim, like this is what's happening soon, but then also just more broadly, to Kathleen's point about what this means for the duration of the project. And I think in terms of the board specific comments related to the EIS, I know that we are working on addressing those with AECOM. And I believe we expect something back from them shortly to address those. I know that you'd also raised issues about testing. You wanted to know about when asbestos testing was taking place and the result of that asbestos testing. The asbestos testing is taking place currently. I think it's wrapping up this week, the end of this week. And we can share those results and any other testing results with you as soon as they're available. But that asbestos testing has taken place for the pavilion. It's just they're wrapping up one other section this week.
Well,
This is
we
Wendy.
really need to understand the, what's coming down and when the demolition plans.
Yeah.
Has DOB approved the demolition of the building, for example?
No, we don't have a demolition permit yet. No.
Well, this is the update we need. So could we get, even obviously we're not meeting in August, but maybe,
Sure.
in
I
some
mean,
sort of
part of it,
form.
Alice, part of it will come, and unfortunately, we aren't not able to tell you dates of some of these things until we actually have the contractor board, because the contractor will ultimately determine the sequence of the work. So we will provide you the things we can as we go along, but as soon as we have the contractor on board, which we anticipate will be in the next month or so, we'll have all of those details of exactly when the demolition would start, when the trees would be coming down, all of those things that we can provide to you.
And that you're saying would be, if you're starting after Labor Day, which is September, so you would be providing this in August, and is that the idea?
That's approximately correct. I mean, as soon as, again, it depends on exactly when we get to through our procurement process, get our contractor on board. But yes, in the coming weeks, we will have that contractor in place so that then we can provide more detailed information about exactly what's happening in which order.
Hey, Gwen and the rest of the team, I think we should have something simple, because I have teenagers right now, with big signs that say, take a selfie here. The environment, this view will never be the same. And we should tell people, take your selfie here. And there should be signs everywhere, take your selfie here, so that they know that is a make it a Times Square type of event, a TikTok type of thing. So you're encouraging people to take pictures of the park with themselves in it, because it won't be the same. That's the kind of basic stuff I'm talking about. And just say, to learn more why the park is never going to be the same, here's the information. But I really want simple things like, take your selfie here. This view will never be the same.
Okay, of course, it's a sad way to end, but okay. I think we're going to move on at this point, because we have yet another presentation on the final Public Design Commission review of the Battery Resiliency Project. So I'm really sorry to,
Alice, I'm sorry, I had my hand up. I just wanted to make
Oh,
one more
yeah,
point
go
if I
ahead.
could. So first to your question about about a resolution, I'm with the other folks who've spoken so far. Certainly Bob and Jeff and the others on getting it done as opposed to phasing. But I think it's important for us to emphasize, and maybe this could be a resolution or something, what Carrie was talking about, which is that the issue for so many people is the loss and fear of loss of the park space and the open space. And I think we need a very concerted effort to try and address that in creative ways. And it's not just, with all due respect, although I think it's a great idea and wonderful, Wendy, but it's not just signage. It's like, where else can we put, usable space for people in our communities? We know we've been talking about Brooklyn Bridge, Manhattan as one possible location for some, for some use, and that we understand the complexity of that. But I mean, things like that are things that I think we need to really incorporate into the thinking here about these projects. We need to get more public space available while these projects are underway. And as they begin to get underway, and hopefully we'll keep them after they're finished.
Well, that's for sure. And I think this board has gone on record not once, but a couple of times in Paul's committee on that very point, the critical need for more park space. And yeah, but there's no question that that is really critical. Okay, I'm going to apologize to Laura Dodge and those folks who are here for the brownfield cleanup, but because this segued from the Battery Park City, we couldn't have her come first this time, so apologies. But we will now move to the Battery Resiliency Project, and thank you for your patience. These are huge topics, and we had we lost Diana, although she's here. But so as a result, we had to bring these committees together because we're a little short-staffed. So, and we're not meeting in August. So everyone, thanks for the patience, but we had a special sort of situation here. Okay, Jordan, take it away. Thank you.
I think I'm actually going to give it to Kathleen and folks to kick this one off.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, Grace will be making the introduction to Stantec.
Great.
Hi, this is Grace Tang, New York City Parks. So yeah, this next agenda item is essentially just to share a few design updates on the Lmcr battery project. I think we've shared pretty much everything. Nothing you've seen before is changing. There's just a few little details that we want to go over with you. So Greg Sprick from Stantec, our design consultant, will walk you through those.
Great.
Greg,
And
are
you
you
said-
sharing the presentation as well?
All right, I'm looking,
Lucian,
maybe Greg
can
is
you
in
please
the,
make Amy and Greg panelists?
Rich,
I think
is Greg, then Amy.
Greg Sprick and Amy C.
Okay,
They're
we're in now.
stuck in attendee.
We're in now.
Made it.
And Amy should be in momentarily. Thank you. Amy's going to pull up her screen when ready. Amy, are you in and able to?
Looks like she's got it.
All right, Amy, you're muted, by the way. Okay, I will kick us off, and sorry for some of those delays, but yeah. So the presentation tonight, as Grace said, is for our final design updates, and thank you for hosting us here tonight. I know everyone's been here for a very long time already. Okay, so here are the areas of focus for the presentation. We'll give a quick general design overview, and then touch on these areas
specifically to discuss what has developed substantially since we last met in March. So the Pier A tie-in, Castle Clinton, a discussion on the slip lighting and M&O area. As Grace mentioned, my name is Greg Spritch. I am the project manager for Stantec. I'm joined with Amy Seek, who's our lead landscape architect. I'll give the quick project overview, and Amy will cover all of our design updates. So I think we looked at this graphic enough tonight, but just to, the battery is part of this broader initiative. We all share this common goal of protecting Manhattan from climate change impacts, and we're specifically talking about the battery as part of this presentation. And as Michael Bradley mentioned earlier, this project stems out of the fact that the wharf is in serious condition and many areas are closed due to safety concerns. This wharf has to be reconstructed, and we're raising the wharf as part of that reconstruction to protect the park from sea level rise inundation. And that's where this is the existing site plan with our project limits shown in magenta overlaid. And really, we are trying to confine the project limits of this project based on the wharf reconstruction itself. We're prioritizing to keep that as narrow as possible to minimize any disturbances to the park amenities, the park's monuments, and of course its trees. And that ties into our design goals. The project has several design goals. Of course, preparing for climate change. The reconstructed wharf will protect the park from sea level rise. We are supporting current site uses, which includes increasing universal accessibility to the wharf. And as I mentioned, preserving park character, preserving the existing trees, landmark structures, and of course the views. And we talked a lot about how these projects come together and how the battery project ties into the adjacent resiliency projects as well. The South Battery Park City Resiliency Project to the northwest and the FIDI master plan to the southeast. Again, the battery project is to provide 2100 sea level rise. It will protect the park from tidal inundation and will tie into the South Battery Park project at Pier A. And again, since the Battery Park project is protecting for sea level rise and not coastal storm surge, the waterfront esplanade will still be usable to the public. Views to the water will not be interrupted. And also the vessel activity to the Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island will be maintained. So with that, I'll turn it over to Amy to get into our specific design updates.
Okay, and can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, all right. So in addition to, or in the process of addressing sea level rise, our design goals remain the same as we've mentioned, as Greg mentioned, just preserving the existing character of the park. So here we're showing the existing condition and the proposed design. It's hard to read the changes that we're going to talk about at this scale. But here's kind of the overview. We have some minor changes to Pier A, some new developments around Castle Clinton, changes to slip lighting and to this area which is currently the beer garden, which is going to be converted into a parks M&O area. Starting with Pier A, this is very similar to what you've seen before with a major ramp rising to the newly elevated wharf from the existing Pier A along the waterfront, and a secondary connection to Pier A between the Korean Memorial and the Labyrinth. We've got the sea level protection elevation running from the +11 elevation on the wharf all the way through this berm. So this berm is what's providing the protection. And then we connect to the elevated part of Pire Plaza. And this is a little different orientation, but what we had presented to you before was at the landing of this Pire Plaza ramp, coming down from their elevated plaza to the existing grade, we make a connection into the park here. And so it rises up to our design elevation and then came back down in a ramp that was oriented towards the Korean War Memorial. And we were trying to keep that ramp as short as possible. But we had some comments back from the last committee meeting that felt like it doesn't flow with the larger circulation patterns of the park. And so what we did was reorient in that direction. So now this is able to be a little bit longer and is no longer a ramp, doesn't have handrails, it's under 5%. And we agree, it makes a smoother connection with those larger circulation flows. And this is a view of that smaller connection. And you can also see here that this perimeter of the battery is detailed in the Stony Creek granite, which is throughout the park. And then the foreground is primarily showing the VPCA project at Pire. A second change is to the Emma Lazarus Memorial, which right now sits outside of this planting bed, and it's really exposed and is getting damage from skateboarders and vehicles. And so one of the considerations that we looked at was putting it in a place that's a little bit more protected as we're doing this design. So this is what you've seen before with the Emma Lazarus Memorial still set out front of this existing planting bed. And what we have proposed to do instead is to embed it in this new planting bed so that it's just a little bit more protected. And the other advantage of that is that in this location, looking at the memorial, you'll also look directly out to the Statue of Liberty in the water. And we feel like that is just kind of an added benefit to that monument. So here's a view of what that will look like. We've also made some modifications to the northern entrance to Castle Clinton. Currently today, you can see here, currently today, this is the existing on top and the proposed on the bottom. There is no universal access provided at this location, and this is a major goal of our project to improve universal accessibility wherever we're touching this site. And so we looked at how we could modify this entrance in the most minimal way possible, preserving these elements. There's walls and bollards and piers that exist. And so in this proposed design, kind of similar to the way we've integrated ramps on the wharf side, we've incorporated two flanking ramps on either side of the stairs, and preserving all of the elements of the existing design. So this is the view of the existing today, and you can see where those, they're actually not ramps, they're sloped pathways down to the Castle Clinton. So that means they don't have handrails. They don't require handrails. In addition to the universal accessibility at Castle Clinton, we are also looking at this planting around Castle Clinton. There's some trees that are in pretty bad shape there, and the lawn is really well trafficked between this inner ring and this outer pathway. And so we wanted to create a planting design that would be equal to the significance of this national landmark. And so what we have proposed is a continuous canopy of trees around this perimeter. You can see that here, with a consistent tree species, which is the Quercus fellows. So this is we're proposing this at a consistent spacing about 30 feet on center. This is also consistent with the original design for this area, which had a consistent tree canopy. It's just that most of those plane trees are not well adapted and they haven't survived. So this is speaking a little bit more to that original design, and it's providing shade where it's really needed in this area and central to the park. Here's the existing condition and a view of that, of the mature tree canopy many years down the road, and a perennial bed underneath that is also unique to this horseshoe around the castle. Here's a view standing on the east side of the castle looking towards the water and the NPS tent, with a view of the impact of that shade and that consistent canopy, and another standing on the west side looking towards the water at 5 years on the top, and then a more mature canopy in 20 years or more. Another change is to lighting along the waterfront. Our approach that you have seen before was to basically take the same approach as there is today, which is at the front of the Gardens of Remembrance, where this pink line is. There's a row of lights, and those are set back from the waterfront. We found in doing our photometric analysis of taking that approach that these slips ended up being dark, and that because they come down, they're set lower than the elevated wharf, and so we were concerned about safety on those slips, and so we looked at a lot of different options for how to light those areas so they'd be safe. And what we came up with was to add 2 light poles, the same type, the battery Lmcr, at each end of the slip, and that provides plenty of lighting to keep those consistent and safe. And in between the slips, there will be these areas that take a more similar approach to the character of today, where the light is set back, and you can experience a little bit of the darkness of the water standing out at this edge of the sea rail. And here's a view of that on the ground. Finally, our conversion of what's currently at the beer garden area to a Parks M&O area to house some needed maintenance equipment. This is the current beer garden area. It's surrounded with a low fence. It's got bluestone pavers, a woodshed, and a buffer of planting. And our proposed design is it preserves the existing trees, except for one that's in really bad shape. And it steps back from the critical root zones of these trees, puts in a new fence, and there's space within here for the containers that are needed and the vehicles that are needed. We have one gated entrance to South Street, and an improved buffer planting around this edge.
I'm sorry, can I just ask, is that a building that we're looking at?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I can see how you see that.
Yeah.
This is not a building. This is a reinforced concrete, just parking area, basically. There are going to be 6 containers and some parked vehicles within this boundary. Can you see my cursor?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a fence around just a.
So you're taking an area that was sort of an open garden with a bar and the small shed, and making it sort of a storage parking area.
Yes. Yes. With water and electric added in here for the maintenance. So here's a view of the current condition. There's the beer garden bar, and on the left is the new playscape. And this is showing the new, it will be an 8-foot tall vertical louvered fence with a new perennial planting along this front.
Is that a permanent fence?
Yes, that's a buffer so that the maintenance area is not visible.
Do you have a plan that shows this a little bit further out? I just can't quite locate where we're looking at
I'll
exactly.
show you on the first page.
Okay.
Yeah, it kind of.
I don't remember seeing this fence before. Is this new? Is this what you're
Oh,
proposing?
that 8-foot tall fence is proposed.
So this is a new thing that the community hadn't seen yet. Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry. There's a delay. So there's the view, and this is the beer garden area. And I don't have a rendering further out, but just to show it on the larger plan, there's the proposed new maintenance area. There's the playscape.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. And I believe that was my last. The last thing is just some details on that particular louvered fence, which I'm getting to. The containers are 8 feet tall, so that's why the fence needs to be that tall. It's called an orso grill fence.
Say that again. It has to be so tall. And how long is it? I can't quite make this. What, 38-foot fence?
It is about 50 feet by about 30. I mean, the area is about 50 feet by 30 feet. And the whole area will be surrounded in this fence. Within the fence will be 8-foot tall containers. And so if we were to go lower, you would just see the tops of the containers.
And what is this the storage is for what here? Like, what is exactly the use?
It's parks maintenance and operations. There are a lot of vehicles that are stored. I actually don't know for sure exactly where they're stored now.
I can
but...
jump here in here a little bit. Yeah, so this is an area that would be for, Parks Department M&O use, actually for our entire District 1. So that covers, all our parks below Canal Street, I believe. So it's kind of a, centralized area where we store equipment and vehicles to service all of those parks in District 1. Right now, we have various containers sort of scattered in and around the battery. It's really not ideal. There's some at the very end of the wharf, just next to the Coast Guard site. There's some stuff in Peter Minuet, so it's a little bit scattered. And so we thought we would take this opportunity to, create just a more consolidated space for parks operations.
Would this alleviate the problem that's presented itself in the Sarah Roosevelt Park that we've been reading about in terms of opening up that community building, which is now being used for storage? Is there any way that any of the park storage that allegedly had to go into that building, Sarah Roosevelt Park, could be happening here so that at least something opens up when we're closing something down? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Not as familiar. I've read about that. I'm not as familiar about that. I'm not sure if Sarah or Mike here are aware, but it's really meant to consolidate some existing things that we have scattered in and around the battery area to serve District 1.
Well, boy, I think that would be an interesting thing to consider, given the scale of this. I don't know if that's something that could be, but I'd love to get a response on that. If somebody could follow up, I'd really appreciate it.
We can look into it.
Some of this material was used to be stored in the area where the playscape was constructed. And in general, District 1, Parks District 1 has never had any real place to put anything. So it's kind of, as Grace said, been strewn about and put in the street. And some of it was under the FDR at one point and had to be moved. There was a building at South Street that we had temporary use of for a while, but that was no longer the case.
Will this open up anything under the bridge? Is what you're describing is something that's been removed there that, this community is very, very interested in doing?
We can identify where all the various pieces are, which is not, it's a small space, so it's not a huge amount of stuff, but mostly it's parked around South Street and State Street for the moment, while we try and figure out where else it could go. And as Grace said, there are containers parked on the wharf that have to be removed for construction.
And is there any alternative fencing that was considered? It looks a little aggressive and not too beautiful. I just curious, you know, why that fence?
I mean, this is actually kind of a higher quality fence than obviously chain link or whatever. We've used this for other M&O areas on other.
And
other
why does it have to be
projects.
that high again? I'm sorry, I know you said it, but why the height?
The storage containers, like they're kind of like shipping containers, you know, they open on the end. It's where we put all our equipment. That's how high they are. That's what I was trying to explain it.
Thanks.
And I think this view, just the rendering doesn't quite show the level of transparency that you can see here, but it does have a lightness about it that maybe isn't reading here.
And there's no way to sort of have taller landscaping that somewhat masks it, or it just seems so, wow, you know, tough, even in this very attractive rendering. I just think that seems like a missed opportunity. Maybe it's something more vertical, or I don't know. You know, you have this immense wall as you enter the park now, and now you have, you know, these large fences. They're you know, I don't know, something to think about.
And I think we can look into the plantings a little bit. To change it up, making them a little taller, as you suggest.
Sorry that I jumped in there, but I didn't mean to interrupt your presentation. Was that the end of it, or?
That was actually the end of it.
Okay. Well, thanks. So let's open it up. Anybody else have questions? I certainly answered a few, but okay. Yep, a few there. Sarah Cassell.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. Is there any reason that the wall can't be made of brick like Castle Clinton so that it, you know, ivy can grow on it, and it can also be an additional barrier for the water? It would seem more practical and probably just as easy to do. Just a thought.
I don't know if you want me to respond to that, Parks or EDC. I mean, I think that the material of this fence is something that we could look into. Connecting it with the flood protections is a complicated question, but materiality in terms of the aesthetics is something that we could look further into.
Yeah, it just.
I mean,
it
I'm
just
just
looks.
going to explain the fencing a little bit too. We just it's a system that we use. It has posts, and then in between the posts are these sort of panels. And so it does help us to have this system so that we can remove the panels in order to get containers and equipment in and out on occasion. I mean, they won't be removed that often. There is a double swing gate for vehicles to come in and out and collect the supplies for the day and lock it up. So really, you know, we just chose something that's fairly simple but secure. You know,
And
that can service this. Yeah.
Just ugly. Just. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Jeff.
The tree plantings that you were showing by Castle Clinton, I saw on the slide there that it indicated they were salt spray resistant and so forth. Presumably they will be able to withstand the 100-year flood inundation with brackish or salt water. Is that the contemplation?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the intent.
And presumably the lighting, same thing. Any lighting that's installed would presumably be flood proof in terms of the electrical wiring and so forth, I guess, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, that's all.
Tammy. Tammy?
Yeah, sorry about that. Thank you. I I would agree that the materiality on the wall would be better blended to something that's not so um, utilitarian, and in a park that's known for its incredible greenness, finding some way to green the wall, if nothing else, which I know Wari would be very much into to provide opportunities for things like that, or to have the materiality match any one of the other walls that's going up would certainly be something I would think that we would look for. And then I had a couple of questions about when you were talking about the projects, did you mention anything? I didn't hear it, and it could have just been going by for where all the docks were. Where are the tall ships going during the projects?
Did you say tall ships?
Yeah, the historic tall ships. You've had
Yep.
historic ships and sailboats there other than the ferries that have had docks and berths. Are they being retained at the battery, or will they be booted, for lack of a better expression?
I can answer that, Amy. Yes, they will. There will be opportunities for the ships that I forgot, Manhattan by Sail that used to dock out of Slip 1 can't do that anymore because Slip 1 is not usable. But when we've completed the work, the ferries will dock at the new slips 3 and 4, and slips 1 and 2 will be available for other boating uses.
Thank you very much for confirming that. So at the moment, only the ferries will be retained during the construction period. Any of the other types of boats will have to find other berths, correct?
That's right.
Okay, and then I had a question about the dialogue about the trees and the lawns on the north side of Castle Clinton. Much of the area of the destruction in that zone has to do with the queuing and the Jersey barriers or French barriers, whatever you call them, that Statue Cruises erects and leaves up, whether they're open or closed. They don't seem to be ever coming down. What is the dialogue and conversation that you've had with the operator? And have there been changes to be able to ensure that they're not leaving all that stuff up and the park is returned to the public domain and not for the private operator's security line? Hello?
Amy, I mean, I think that's a question about how the plant beds will be protected as much as anything. Can you talk to that?
Oh, okay. I thought we were talking about NPS coordination. Okay. Yes. Well, this things will change a little bit here because because let's see if I can show. This may be the best image, but actually, you know what? I'm going to go to this larger plan. So starting at this point, we begin to elevate up to the elevated wharf. And so there's a grade change between this edge and the planting bed, which will prevent people from passing through the planting. And then the nature of the planting itself, which is a grasses-based planting, it is going to have a density which is meant to discourage any kind of moving across. How the barriers are set up is a different question. So, but just to continue from this point, when we reach existing grade, it will be a similar condition along this edge, just with the denser planting, keeping people from or discouraging people from passing through.
So have you included in your design principles where they put the Jersey barriers and how they operate to be able to ensure that the planting beds are not walked through? I think is really where I'm going, because that seems to be the biggest problem is people cannot traverse the park and go from point A to point B when they're operating.
So that conversation with NPS about the security fencing is ongoing, and I feel like somebody else should speak to exactly. I mean, we're showing it in this proposed design at the wharf, where we have a secure area for slips 3 and 4.
Amy, I think it's more the
Yeah.
queuing with the French barriers.
Yeah.
That
exactly.
They're not drawing in currently.
And I think that's my thought process on this. It's a beautiful design, but if you don't include the obvious parts that are there now, they're going to be there when you return, unless there's something that I don't know. I see where you have them, where the slips are, and I see all of that. But doesn't that mean you'll have to redesign the park again based on the Jersey barriers? Or are we, is there a way to ensure some security lines and access for the public so people can walk back and forth?
So this design has been shared and coordinated with MPS, and we have made suggestions how the queuing line can be optimized in the future. And that coordination with MPS will continue as the project progresses. They haven't necessarily proposed a queuing solution that I think you're looking for yet.
As long as it's been built in conjunction with what we're talking about here, so once the boats are put back and we don't have to redo this, then I think that's a wise thought process.
Okay. Anybody else from the committee or the board? Okay, Carrie, Parker, Davidson. Oh, I'm not sure. Carrie, is this your hand was still up from before, or are you speaking on this part?
Okay, now I'm muted. Okay. No, I have questions about this. So I should say I'm with Friends of Dwayne Park, so that's why I come from a parky perspective. So the container, so I'm really the maintenance and operations piece is the part that interests me first. So I guess my first question is, you said there are vehicles and also storage containers. Is this where the office is going to be? Is this where the park staff for District 1 will be?
No, there's no building associated with this, just parking of like gators and then containers for storage.
Okay, but like the park's trash truck and the mobile unit, is that where that goes? Or is that still going to be, I don't know if maybe
There are some vehicles that are parked in the street, and they'll continue to do so, but then some smaller vehicles will be stored within, or various other vehicles will be stored within the fence.
So these are new vehicular assets being added.
No, they're just being consolidated. There's some like in Peter Minuet, just like off this page here. There's some vehicles there. There's like there's a vehicle that I think is used seasonally in Washington Square Park that we would store here during a few months, but then it gets relocated to Washington Square for a few months. So it's just consolidating.
So it goes all the way up to Washington Square? Or are you talking about Washington Square?
Yeah, there is one vehicle. Yeah.
Okay, so this is going to serve, and it's really an operations question. If you put all of the operational vehicles so far downtown, the further away the vehicles are from the parks that they're mainly serving, the harder it is to get the services to the parks. So anyway, that's why I'm asking if we're putting all of the vehicles that service all of District 1 all the way downtown, there's a benefit to having them closer to the parks that they actually serve. So that's my first comment. And then so vehicles and storage only, no office space. And the other question was, where is the comfort station or the bathrooms in the Battery? Do you have
There's
those?
public bathrooms that exist just on the north side of the restaurant. There's no change to that.
I'll go to the diagram. Oh, I'm not sure if it.
I mean, I know where the one is over by by Bowling Green, all the way on the sort of eastern side.
Right, and at the View and at Castle Clinton. All of those facilities are remaining, but this project is not proposing any additional facilities.
Okay, because it would be nice to have a comfort station if you were going to revisit the aesthetics of the fencing and some of those things. You might consider adding a comfort station since it's a highly traffic space. And then my other question was on the landscaping and the cost of maintenance. The tree canopy shows I don't know what it is, but pachysandra or something really hardy underneath. There's a lot of grasses that you made mention of for keeping people from walking through. That sort of densely planted stuff and perennial gardens have really high maintenance costs. So does this conservancy have to field the cost of the additional planting, or is Parks Department going to provide additional, a gardener assigned or additional resources to the conservancy so that it can maintain those new plantings?
Actually, the Conservancy asked for additional planting that they will maintain. I think Maury Price has long seen that horseshoe area as an eyesore that she wanted to plant up. And this is the opportunity to get that done. She's very happy to take care of it after it's done.
But will Parks be giving financial support or providing additional gardener, or is the Conservancy going to continue to do private fundraising for that?
I think she's planning to handle it with her resources.
Okay.
That actually brings me to a question, which is, where is Rory Price on these new plans? Unfortunately, she was not here tonight, so I'm just curious, is she in full support, or are there parts of this that she's asked for you to amend on behalf of the Conservancy?
We shared all of these details with her over last several weeks, and she's supportive of all of it.
And she's what? I'm sorry.
She's supportive of all of it.
Okay, great.
In fact, she thought the fencing was very handsome.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. So does the committee want to write a resolution on this with some of the points that have been raised in terms of the fencing, in terms of the tree planting, in terms of the storage areas use? I think those were the 3 points that we spoke of. Anybody have feelings on that? Can I get a show of hands if that's a yes to offer to the Public Design Commission our thoughts on those areas? Let's see. Put your hands up if you agree to do a resolution with those points that we talked about. Okay, so nobody wants, okay, one person, that's Tammy. So.
You know how I feel. If you say nothing, then you're not on record, and whatever is done is done.
Yeah, I have to say I would agree with that, because I think the Public Design Commission could use the, opinions of people who were using the park. But I don't sense, I'm not sure how to do this most effectively, Lucian. Is this just I'm just not sure if people are responding or not responding. Let's do it this way. Would anyone prefer not to write a resolution? Raise your hand.
In my case, it's not so much not to do one, I'm just not sure what it would say. Once again, I don't think we reached necessary consensus on it.
Well, I think we were asking that that the fencing was looked at again with potential for alternatives and more green against the fencing.
Okay,
We looked at, yeah.
That one I don't agree with, but I mean, I'm just speaking my own. I mean, Ward
No.
seemed to think it was nice. I don't defer to her on everything, but I did.
Right. Well, you're one of the committee members and you're entitled to that opinion. The other was the storage, which the point I brought up is to sort of being assured, that we understand what that storage area is being used for, and is there any way to open up other storage areas that in our district that could be used for park, like i.e. the Brooklyn, Manhattan area.
I agree with that one.
Right. And if others are other pieces of this that you want to add, anybody else, or?
Hey,
Well, then
Alex.
maybe Tammy, it's a letter rather than a resolution that identifies a little bit of recording of this meeting and some of the points that were raised. Maybe that's the easier way to go about this.
Resolutions, you got to do a resolution and pass it. And
I agree with Tammy.
All right. Okay.
Sorry.
So, Tammy, did you have any other points you wanted to put into this resolution? Those were the two that I had.
So Alice, this is Wendy. I think that it would be nice to touch base with Worry and echo what Worry, because I know that she'll have strong opinions. And if she does approve all this, then, that matters a lot in my mind.
It does. Well, that's why I asked the question, and according to this group, she does, including the fencing. So, but Worry, it's not this committee. So, but I agree with that. So
we can do a resolution. We can pass what we think and still touch base. And we have until the full board meeting. We can do a draft resolution. We can always pull it back. It depends on when they're going in front of PDC in order of timing. So I think that's a question going back to the team from Stantec and everybody. When are they going in front of PDC for review? So we know when we have to have the resolution ready.
That's a good idea.
When will that be?
So we are hoping to be on the August, I believe it's the 15th meeting.
Is anything else being reviewed by PDC in terms of these projects? For example, any part of the Battery Park City's Wagner Park areas?
Jordan, maybe you can answer that one?
Or Gwen?
Yeah, I'm not sure if Gwen is still around. Believe they've previously gone through PDC process, and the other Seaport master plan are prior to that stage, but presumably would be going through that. But yeah, would be good to confirm. I don't know if Gwen's still around.
Yeah. Okay. We'll confirm that. Okay. So Tammy, go ahead. You were suggesting that we do write a resolution.
Write a resolution based on the feedback and comments that we've gotten, including the opportunities for another storage area further north, including any potential opportunities to ensure that the staff has a place that they can potentially reside, because there is no office necessarily there. So where on earth are the staff going to, and we can do everything in a resolution, vote on it tonight. And if, there's anything glaring, Worry says, no, we can adjust it at the full board as needed.
How does that sound to everybody?
I think we should list what those points are. I mean, I might support them all if they were worded in a particular way.
Well, Jeff, you're our wordsmith often. Go ahead and
The one person who didn't want to do a resolution.
You just stepped up to the plate. Well, you seem to be on the fence about the fence. So
well, I mean, if what you wanted to say was to revisit potential alternatives for the fence, I mean, I think that's always a good thing to do. I'm not sure I'm prepared to say put bricks there or something like. I mean,
no, I agree with you. Yeah,
but if there's an alternative that meets their needs, that's also otherwise aesthetically satisfactory, certainly we could look at that.
Right, and I would add to that there be looking at some vertical plantings or additional plantings along that edge. I don't know if that's something anyone would object to, but I would like to consider that. Okay, that's one. the need for the storage area, the maintenance and operation area to be fully defined as to what is going on there, how it's being utilized, and, you know, again, would it allow for opening up other areas that, you know, in our district for park usage?
Well, you're talking about a little parking space, right? I mean, it's not that big of a
No,
place.
it's not big, but you know, this is specifically what was brought up for anyone who's followed the Sarah Roosevelt Park, where there's this fantastic community building that was a beloved community building that was wonderful, that's been completely taken over by storage, and they're desperate to get the storage out of the building and give it back to the community as a center. And it really sort of is interesting how this is a perfect example of a place where storage can be hidden and you could open up a building. So that's why I brought it up. But either way, to be, you know, if you're going to be taking this away from this park, giving it somewhere else, I mean, it's not like a major point. It's just a, you know, anyway, just something to consider in the resolution.
And then I think the other one you mentioned was staff office space or whatever, if there was availability for that. Kind of at cross purposes with putting other stuff in that space, but it's something to consider.
Well, it's not it's just an open for containers. It's not an area that has office space.
I thought the suggestion though was find a space for an office or something.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't, this resolution isn't, I understand Tammy's point, but frankly, I think a lot of what they're proposing seems pretty good to me.
Good.
Like, could I make a comment?
Sure. Sorry, Bob, I didn't see.
I think that it's really important to me when we do make resolutions, we really think about them, and that the people who made these plans really have thought about it for a long time, and they really have thought through the options. And we only have looked at this for a few seconds, and then we say we want to pass a resolution. I was at a meeting a few days ago where the two issues were World Trade Center 5, whether or not trying to hold the position that that really should be fully affordable. It's an epic changing issue. And I wanted a resolution on that, but they decided there wasn't any time for it. So nothing happened. Another issue is whether or not we should protect the Fulton Stall market. I wanted a resolution on that. There wasn't time for it. We're at 9:47 and we're talking about a resolution where we don't have much agreement, and we're trying to force a resolution into the hamburger grinder. So I like to think about things before I publish and write them and get involved with them. And I really want to put my heart and my guts into them before I actually say that someone should give them attention. So things that are thought through by other people, and then we kind of take issue with them as though we knew more. I don't know that we know more.
Okay, so the
that's just my
resolution,
concern.
yeah, we appreciate it, and we all have the same constraints and concerns about time and about the fact that we see these things very late in the game, and particularly late tonight, given the tremendous agenda and the you know, problems that we've had in terms of just getting a lot of meetings during this period of short staff. Anyway, that said, there is a resolution on the table to approve these plans with the two items that were mentioned, which again were the need to identify the use of the storage area very specifically and the fencing around it, as was described by just moments ago by Jeff. So do we have a vote for yes on this? Anybody want to say no to this? Let's start there. Any abstentions? Okay, so it sounds like those two aspects, except with approval, are in, okay?
I at least wanted to vote no anyway.
Oh, okay, well, you had that opportunity. So one no. Lucian, you're with us there, taking this down? Okay, terrific.
No,
All right.
Jack votes no.
I cannot thank everybody from these teams for all the time and tremendous effort and exchange and generous comments and listening and all of it. It's really remarkable, and we really, really thank you a lot. And we look forward to working with you more, of course, and we're moving on. Okay, thank you, Jordan
Thank
and
you.
teams.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Really, really, really
Thank you.
wonderful, wonderful session. And I'm sorry for the late hour. Okay, 250 Water Street. My goodness, Laura Dodge, are you still here? I can't believe it if she is. Otherwise, oh my God, Laura, bless your heart, Laura Dodge.
Yes.
Our
Am
independent
I?
community monitor on 250 Water
Hi.
Street. Thank you. And we promise this won't happen again. I'm
No, no,
so
no.
sorry.
No,
Go
no
ahead, Laura.
apology. No apology needed. It was two fantastic projects, very well done, fantastic presentations. So I'll be brief because of the hour, but I think just to kind of bring everybody up to speed. So July 1st, the work at 250 Water Street resumed again, began with some soil borings to supplement their characterization of the soil for excavation. I think for those of you who were tuned in to the last meeting and also to perhaps the 250 Water Street Working Group meeting, the work with respect to sampling is just to enable them to have more options for disposal facilities. It's a very tedious process in our industry to get approval from a disposal facility for excavated soil once it's coming off a site where the soils are impacted or contaminated. So that work was followed by some testing of a new telemetry system which is basically wiring in of instrumentation for automatically, being able to record the air quality monitoring data for the Drome 505 mercury vapor analyzer, which is the instrument that is got a lower detection limit and a little bit less finicky. Langen and Howard Hughes found a vendor in California that actually was able to construct telemetry units for them, Pelican boxes, which are those plastic boxes where the instruments are contained. So they tested those instruments. They were successful in being able to use the J505, so that those J505 units have now been in each of the camp community air monitoring program units that surround the site and the ones that are being placed off-site when they're working within 20 feet of the property boundary. So since July 1st, they've been resuming doing basically preparatory activities. The other thing they've been doing is exploratory test excavations, or test pits, we call them, to clear the perimeter on the east side, the property boundary, and then also coming up towards Pearl Street to make sure there are no utilities, subsurface utilities, or obstructions in preparation for putting in the supportive excavation for the site-wide for the mercury impacted soil excavation activities, which are coming up, but also for the site-wide excavation of soils after that. So that work has been proceeding. They also started with unearthing the underground storage tanks that are located on the Peck Slip side of the property, both in the corner by Pearl and also down by Water Street. And then last Friday, they actually unearthed the underground storage tanks and pumped them out, cleaned them out. The tanks wound up being found to be encased in concrete. So the work involved with that was a little bit more than perhaps otherwise you would expect, because typically we don't see them encased in concrete. So that creates a little bit more effort to get them opened up and removed. So that work has been going on. And during all that time, the community air monitoring program has been in place. Again, the 6 units that surround the property, 2 on Pearl Street, 2 on Water Street, 1 each on Peck and Beekman. And then when the work is within 20 feet of the property boundary, the monitoring system is placed across the street. There's been no issues with the Drome mercury vapor analyzer since they've switched over to the J505. It's been functioning very effectively. No malfunctions of any kind. They did work last Saturday, working on the excavations for the supportive excavation activity, the soldier piles, which are going to be placed along the property boundary to enable them to excavate to the depths that they need to go, which is about 15 to 18 feet, depending upon where you are. And there were instantaneous readings on the Jerome 505, that range from about 0.45 to 2.74 micrograms per cubic meter, but those were instantaneous readings. There were no nothing approaching the 15-minute maximum daily average concentration, which is what the action level for mercury is compared to. The action level being the 1 microgram per cubic meter. So there was really virtually no mercury concentrations reported, very, very low concentrations. There was occasional detection of volatile organic vapors, which would be related to the underground storage tanks. But again, those levels were well below the action level for volatile organics, which is a 5 part per million action level. The only thing that occurred was a slight malfunction of the dust meter. But again, that's, part of the process in handling all of these instruments day in and day out. Those kinds of things are going to occur. In each instance, they did the right thing. They shut the work down. They looked at what was going on. One of the key differences with this phase of work, which relates to or is an outgrowth of the changes to the community air monitoring program that came out of the 428 excavation activity, was that they're taking very proactive measures each and every day. There's the use of foam that's being sprayed on the open excavation at the end of every day. The information about that foam is in the remediation work plan, or I'm sorry, in the construction health and safety plan, which has been revised and updated, and it's on the 250bcp.com website for anyone that wants to look at it. It's called Atmos. It's a foam to suppress dust and any kind of vapor or odor, and they're doing that at the end of each workday. And they're also doing proactively spraying the mercury suppression foam, Mercon X, when they go into an area where there's anticipated mercury concentrations in soil. So it's been going smoothly. The project manager from the New York State DEC, Rafi Alam, has been on site most every day since they started back up work on July 1st. So he's been monitoring the compliance with the remediation work plan and the community air monitoring plan. We also are going to be on site this week, either Wednesday or Thursday, which is those are the days that Langen, the consultant for Howard Hughes, anticipates that they may begin the mercury impacted soil hotspot area soil excavation. So the area where the former thermometer factory was, which is basically adjacent to Pearl Street, sort of 3/4 of the way down towards Peck Slip. And that first excavation area will go down about 10 feet initially, and then they'll be doing additional supportive excavation. They'll be moving towards Peck Slip, closer to Peck Slip, and then they'll be going deeper in that first area after they do the corner by Peck Slip. So it's a rotation of the excavation in order to support the excavation depth, and then proceed with the actually mercury impacted soil removal, which is basically what we've all been waiting for, right? It's, we identified where these mercury hotspot soils are, and now they're going in to remove and off, load those soils into trucks and move that off for offsite disposal. Again, using proactive methods where the Mercon X will be sprayed on the excavation proactively. They're not waiting for air quality data. They're just going to go ahead and do it and then proceed with excavation. So we do plan on being on site, like I said, either Wednesday or Thursday morning. And our work on site will be focused on, touching base with the Langen folks and Rafi Alam from DEC, but focusing on the perimeter of the site, doing air monitoring around the outside fencing, at the ground level, at the breathing level for a child, at the breathing level for adult, going around the fence on the site side, and then across the street on all 4 streets, Water Street, Beekman, Pearl, and Peck Slip, and then going over to Southbridge Towers and verifying air quality at the air intake areas, again, at all 3 levels, and doing that basically all day long, and just confirming that no matter what they're doing on site, there's no issue either with conformance with the required components of the remediation or any indication of any migration of any kind of adverse air quality impact off-site. So far it's been, looking good in terms of the all of the changes that were incorporated into the construction health and safety plan and the community air monitoring plan after the 428A excavation activities are all being implemented. The other thing that they're doing is before they opened up the top of the underground storage tanks and started pumping out the contents last week, they put up the odor suppressant sleeves that go inside the interior side of the fence. And as you probably know, if you've seen the site, they have pushed the fence out, which was also discussed at the last working group meeting, because they need the extra room for the supportive excavation activities. So you'll see the fence being pushed out really eventually on all four sides, but now into Pearl Street to enable them to have more room for getting ready to support the excavation before they do the mercury impacted soil excavation, and then also on the PEC slip side. So again, that's basically where we are. There's been pretty much routine communication. They have, Langen and Howard Hughes has been posting their daily field monitoring reports and the air quality reports on the 250bcp.com website. We haven't seen Friday's report or Saturday's report, and they were out on Saturday doing additional test pit work to clear the soldier pile or supportive excavation areas to make sure there were no obstructions so that they could proceed with that work without an issue. But I did have communication by email with both DEC and with Langen today, and they provided the update that there were no air quality issues of concern. And we're also working with them to provide them feedback on their daily field monitoring reports, just to ensure that they're really clear and useful for the community, and that there's, the wording of them in terms of, how everything is being done and described is more user friendly for the community, because this is important. It's going to continue, throughout the entire summer. The next activity, which is about to begin this week, is going to continue all throughout the rest of July and August. This is, that we're getting ready for what we've been waiting for pretty much from the beginning of the work, which is getting rid of those mercury impacted soils.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. And again, many thanks for your patience. Does anyone have any questions? This, of course, all gets posted on the website. Questions for Laura or concerns? Well, that's good news. Although I do see Colleen Robertson. I don't know if I missed you from before, and Megan. Okay, sorry, I misspoke. There's two from outside there. Okay, Colleen.
And you can unmute yourself now.
For another reason before. Thanks,
Hello?
Alice.
Oh, sure. Good. There you go.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay. I guess then Megan then?
Fucking A.
Megan?
Hi there.
Hi.
Hey, I just wanted to quickly say how far I thought this July meeting brought us, and I'm super impressed with a lot of the things that were talked about and some of the efforts that are being made. And that all has to do with everyone just staying on point. And thank you very much, Community Board 1, for always supporting and asking the questions and giving the community the support to make sure that we had Laura on board and that we were able to push the needle as far as we were. So thank you for that. I guess at the meeting, and I know this isn't really under Laura's tent, but I know it's under Community Board 1's tent, is there was a great deal of confusion, I thought, about where the sound monitors were and who had, where they were and what sort of access were going to be going forward, because we're all, although we're really pleased that this stuff is happening during the summer months, just because of the exposure for the kids, I know it's unfortunate for the families who live there year round and people who are next to the site. But the sound also is going to be a big thing going forward. And I just want to put on the record that that hasn't been quite worked out. And I don't know if CB1 has received any more information about where the sound monitors are and if they have been established at a couple locations, because I know the Blue School hadn't had officially. NOAA didn't think that one had been put there yet. So do we have any clarity about the sound monitors, which I know isn't really under what Laura is involved with, but it is under 250 water?
Thanks, Megan. First of all, right back at you for a big thank you for the work that you do. Obviously, without you, we wouldn't be here. The answer from this committee that I'm aware of is the answer is no. I don't have the answer to that question, but we will certainly get it. And if you'd be good enough to write the question precisely, and then we'll send it off and make sure we get the response and know the answer to it. So yeah, I'm not aware of that. Unless, Lucian, you have received that information. I haven't. It was not clear to me.
I haven't received it, but Megan, thank you for asking that. I'm likely going to speak with DEP tomorrow at my district service cabinet meeting, and I will inquire about the placement of the sound monitors.
Great. Okay. Megan, are you signing off there? Okay, Andy? Andy?
Andy, you're unmuted. You can speak.
Hi. I just want to say thank you to the community's needs, both you, Alice, to Tammy, and the for making sure that 250 at least is, maximally protected. And Laura, thank you for that very understandable report. So we are involved, and Southbridge people need to be kept apprised of what the community board is doing and how Laura is monitoring. Thank you for going over to the intake valves.
Yes.
That's what I just wanted to say. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. Yes, and thank you, Laura. Well, okay, I think we are done with that, and I cannot again thank you enough. And what can I say again? Apologies for the late night. We're almost done here, gang. Thanks again to Laura. The last thing on our agenda was a potential, yet another brownfield cleanup. Laura, here's another one for you, potentially. And I don't know, Lucian, do you want to put this up on the screen? Did you all, I know you all got a copy of it, but the question is whether DEC will accept it into the program. I've only skimmed it ever so slightly, I have to be frank, but it looks like it has an underground storage tank of sort of consequential size, and I'm not sure what else. And the question is, do we want this to go through the brownfield cleanup program? And I can't imagine ever answering no to that. So I'm not very sophisticated on this. Maybe Laura, while you're still here, is there any reason we wouldn't want to support the brownfield cleanup for this particular site, which is 111, 121 Washington Street? Lucian now has it up on the public notice fact sheet, is now up on the screen. But if this committee wants to write a resolution in support, or Tammy and I can write a letter that addresses this.
They are so good.
What? Somebody shouted out something, but anyway, that's what this is about. You can see that we have a comment period that ends on August 20th, my birthday. From where I sit, the comment, I can't imagine why we wouldn't, is actually, Laura, you're here. Would there be a reason the community would not want to support a brownfield cleanup program? I realize there's something in it for the developer, of course, but is it a good idea, generally speaking? I mean, we really don't have enough information, I guess, to be able to go much further.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the specifics of this site, but I mean, in general, I mean, anytime you have an entity that's taking on a remediation and a cleanup, I mean, it's one more cleanup completed that might not otherwise be as quickly or in the time that a developer might be motivated to move it forward. So, the advantage is obviously that there would be, a remediation completed. So that's always a positive. In looking at this, I don't know. I mean, if it's a cleaners, it sounds like there potentially could be, something related to the cleaning solvents. That's a potential possibility. I don't know enough about the site.
Right. I think none of us do, and we're certainly not have the expertise.
I
And does
actually
the
know something
committee-
about the site.
Sorry, what did you say?
I mean, I remember the site. This used to be a garage, and it was where
Mhm.
the Avis rental car place was, and I believe it had a gas station on it as well. So presumably, there may be fuel tanks
Right.
there. The building immediately, or a couple of buildings immediately adjacent to it are residential buildings. So there are people that are living immediately next to it. I don't know how they feel about, I guess if it goes into the program, it's more likely that the lot will be developed into something that the neighbors might not like. But certainly if it's going to be developed, I think it's probably to the benefit to have it cleaned appropriately than not.
Right.
So does the committee want to support, just exactly what Jeff said, which is if the, area were to be developed, we would support it becoming part of the brownfield cleanup program? Is that something we could want to write as a resolution? Do we have anybody who has a thought on that besides Jeff?
Alice, it's Richard. I just feel like don't really know enough about it.
Yeah.
There is to go into the program. There is, of course, a public cost. There is a monitoring requirement. There's relief to a property owner, all of which has public costs associated with it. And without knowing anything about the site, clearly we would want to err on the side of caution. But if we have time, I'd rather learn more about the site and then make a decision.
Oh, we had sent it around and you have all the information, and actually it's pretty comprehensive. And I think we all, suffered from not doing our homework here. We asked DEC to come and they said they were not going to come before they had made the decision whether it would enter the program. So it's a little bit of a catch-22, but I appreciate what you're saying. I also felt similarly, but I thought, is there some way to say this where we're not really committing to more than to say if it were to go into the program, we would support it. But I mean, if it were to be developed, but perhaps we don't want to write something. Unfortunately, we don't have more time because the comments have to be submitted by the 20th of August, and we're no longer in a position to, meet again. So any other, the committee should make this decision. But
So
if,
Alice, is it possible to comment and just say that, we've learned so much from the 250 Water Street project, and if it were accepted, the committee would be looking to take similar roles in terms of monitoring and frequent, feedbacks and some of the things that we've done. It seems to me that we can give the heads up to this, project that, there's the 250 Water Street is kind of the standard that we want to hold them to.
well, I'm not sure I would agree with that in terms of not knowing enough about this site versus that site, whether or not we would have to have an independent monitor or not.
Fair enough. It's
Yeah,
not.
I wouldn't know, but maybe we go with just letting DEC make this decision based on their own assessment and we don't opine on it. I mean, that's another way to approach this.
Are there people, entities, organizations is there a controversy around this in any way?
Lucian, do you have any other information you want to share? Because this came through Lucian actually. I saw it and then I don't know.
The site has been vacant a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Port Authority may have been using it as some sort of staging area during the Trade Center reconstruction. I do know one of the people who lives next door. I could ask her if there's any issue that she's aware of. I suspect the residents would probably love to see it remain vacant and become a park, but as opposed to a 60-story hotel or whatever that might be in the offing
Right.
instead.
Right.
Well, but whatever it needs to become, it would need to be remediated.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe even as a park. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
That's right.
Lucian, you were going to chime in something there?
I haven't heard any feedback for or against the remediation or the acceptance of this site into the brownfield remediation program. I do suspect that it would behoove the developer immensely to do so because it would increase their options. I don't know if anyone would is thinking about opposing it as a way to oppose the larger project, but generally, in my professional opinion, I'm always in favor of seeing contaminants be removed from the area whenever possible, and I say that from a borough perspective. These brownfield redevelopment sites happen all across the borough and the city, and because of our industrial past, there's all sorts of different types of contaminants, whether it's a community garden with lead in its soil or a former fueling station or automotive use with an leaking underground storage tank. So, I think, my typical stance and recommendation would always be to, cautiously support any opportunity to remove contaminants. But, we do have an opportunity to have another bite of the apple. If there is an executive committee meeting in August, that would give us enough time to present something if the committee felt like they needed more time to sit on this. Honestly, I think if you let it to its own devices, it's probably something that would be accepted into the brownfield cleanup program. Would be my guess.
People want to wait until the executive committee or puts together something as simple as, it's to be developed, we would support it being entered into the cleanup program, or would you like to have a little more time to review the documents again, or for the first time, and then opine for executive, which is, I guess, Thursday, next Thursday, right? This Thursday.
Alice, I'm kind of persuaded that, we could write something that says, we would support the best judgment of
Department of Environmental Conservation.
DEC, exactly, and would prefer to err on the side of caution and protection of the communities.
I think that sounds good. Anybody disagree with this? Any other thoughts? Committee members?
Only if you clarify caution, like caution in the sense of exposure to latent contaminants, or caution to exposure because of the removal of latent contaminants.
Well, I don't see any. There's both, really. I mean, we would certainly want the contaminants to be removed. That's what we're saying. We caution in that regard. But if there's any risk to the communities, as we experienced in 250 Water Street, we would want to then weigh in at that point, if that were to.
That's clear.
Yeah, and I would think maybe the word is vigilant. I mean, that the community really wants to be involved, and I would use the example of 250 in our history there, as well as the jail, which is not actually, interestingly enough, a brownfield site, but it's certainly one that could be considered. I mean, I think we should point out that the community has quite a few, and I think it's wise that we try to remediate them. So I would say yes to this, but anybody else? Bob, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, as an outsider to the community board, I always thought these things went through a fair amount of deliberation, and I've gone to all of the community boards in Manhattan, and they give better consideration and much more careful attention to every resolution they pass. And so we tend to use it more we tend to be more risque with it. The evidence from my point of view is that no one here really bothered to read this or really has a stance on it. And so I think that just for public reasons, I'm not comfortable making a stance unless I really thought about it.
Okay.
And so when I make a comment in this forum, it's because I have a conscience about it, and I really want to believe in what I say. I really appreciate what Laura said, because that was the only really good guidance we have. Because just like it was said, every park is fundamentally different. Every one of these sites is fundamentally different, and the interests of the developers are different, and the politics of what happens in the environmental groups is different, and the specifics of the site are different. And so, you know, just to kind of say, oh, I have a hunch about this. Oh, it's just I can't respect that very much. That's just how I feel about a lot of it.
Okay, well, you a little bit of both sides, because Laura's saying that we would go forward in most cases, and you're saying you're not quite there yet. Okay, so Megan, what do you have to say?
I think we should write the
Yeah, go ahead.
resolution. I read some of it briefly, and there were concerns about possible, from what I read, asbestos, mold, in addition to the petroleum tank. So I think what we've talked about before, about the wording of the resolution, where I think we should go forward with it.
Thank you. I would agree with you. Colleen? Colleen Robertson?
Oh, and you can unmute now.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, this is actually, my name is Danny Robertson. I'm Colleen Robertson's husband. I'm an attorney, a litigator by trade. I've dealt with groundwater and other environmental contamination cases. Very familiar with the brownfields program from our experience with 250 water. It sounds to me that I think the primary consideration here would be counterparty risk. Who is the developer? Do you trust them to, accurately adhere to the cleanup standards and complete it, rather than, leaving something, open and that could be potentially dangerous and contaminate the community? So from that perspective, it sounds to me that rather than saying, oh, we would agree with the judgment of the DEC at a future date, we don't know what that might be. But I think what we could say at this point is that we don't really have any basis for opposition, and that would seem to me to be a reasonable position for some sort of resolution about something like this.
Yeah, I think that's actually a good tact. I appreciate that. I think that in your lawyerly way makes sense, that we don't see a reason to oppose it at this point. Anybody else?
I just wanted to say I think that that's at least a superior opinion, because we aren't really making an affirmative position as though we really understood the whole matter, because we are playing with public coins, and when we say we believe in something, we're really making an investment on behalf of the public in that thing that we're supporting. And so, just out of respect for values, I think the kind of idea that we just heard at least assert something that's non-committal, but also move things forward a little bit.
Okay, so it sounds like you've changed your thought on that. Okay, well, Lucian, maybe you want to draft something up. I think it sounds like we're saying that, we would want to have a better understanding of, a lot of parts of this. And frankly, I did read some of this, I should just say, and I did actually share it with my brother-in-law, who works for the Department of Justice and the Environmental Crimes Division. I should just share with you, who did advise me to say yes to this, because he felt there would be not a real negative in his mind. He's a pretty experienced attorney on this, so just for what that's worth. But anyway, Lucian, do you want to read back what sort of seems to be the way we want to word this? because I'm losing track myself, unless anyone else wants to summarize it. Jeff, you want to give it a whirl? You're on mute.
Oh, sorry. And sorry, I was reading some of the application when you were commenting there. I was thinking of the counterparty risk point. And so it occurred to me, we really don't know anything about this developer. It is a new property owner. I was just looking at the deed, which is dated, I think, just this past year. Yeah, September of 2021. So I'm starting to become somewhat hesitant of kind of vouching for the develop. My concern is a favorable resolution or urging that this should be part of the brownfields program is kind of vouching for a developer that we know nothing about. And for all I know, they're the world's best people to be building an apartment building. That the owner is, the LLC is called something like Carlisle, New York Apartments LLC. So presumably they are planning on developing, a condominium or rental building there. But I'm starting to think that maybe I'm kind of drawing the opposite conclusion that Mr. Robertson was drawing, which is since I think I agree with his statement that the counterparty risk is probably the thing that we care about the most, and we know the least about that.
I'm uncertain what the hesitancy with the counterparty risk. Are we worried that we're going to be litigated against?
No. What I mean is you wouldn't, brownfield program or not, you would not want a developer that you couldn't trust to comply with that, whatever the program is that they've agreed to do with the brownfield cleanup.
Isn't that why we rely on the DEC to oversee that process?
Yeah, I mean that's I think the risk that I was understanding Mr. Robertson to identify, which is one I think I would agree with. I mean, we've had the benefit of Laura in connection with 250 water, and based on Laura's reports, it sounds like Langen has done an honorable job in putting together, in complying with the program and interacting with her and so forth. Now, I do see on this application that Langen apparently is involved in this project. And I want to emphasize, I know nothing negative about this developer, but if there were something negative about the developer, maybe I wouldn't want to be vouching for their brownfield cleanup application.
I mean, maybe the way to do this is to just simply support the concept of cleaning up a, blighted site. And that we have done this in the past and have seen some success, and, that we don't at this point have enough information, that not knowing the developer and the
To weigh in on this particular application.
Right, but just that as a rule, we support the idea of remediating compromised sites in our.
I would support a resolution that said that, yeah.
Okay, all right, we got it. Excuse me, but 1028, that's it. Does anyone have any no's on that? Any abstentions? Oh, hallelujah. Good night, everybody. Boy, thank you all so much.
I just have, if I may, Alice, I have one comment before you close the meeting. I would just encourage the kind of discussion to not focus on the negative comments, to not focus on criticizing folks in the room here and on the committee, but to propose your own viewpoints in a positive way, rather than a critique of others in the group. That's my own comment.
Is that directed to me?
No, it is not directed to you.
Oh, okay. I think I missed a beat. Oh, I see. Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. comment. That's a good one for the general rule. And again, many thanks to everyone. We did our best. I really, you understand the problem we had tonight. And thank you, Lucian, and all of you. Way too long. What can I say? Good night.
Good night, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Night all. Thank you.